In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board and town hall, forwarding to the officially designated newspapers, that this meeting would take place at the Milburn Education Center at 7 p.m. on February 3rd, 2026. Meeting details and the draft agenda are also posted on our website. Please all stand to salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Here.
Mr. Ceruto?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Saccomandi?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the January 6th, 2026 Township Committee Organization Meeting minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Okay. Reports. Newman Stoller, would you like to start?
Sure. All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight. Recreation Committee, ski club's going strong. I was very cold yesterday. I'm a chaperone on that. Luckily, we've had no major injuries or lost kids. That's always good. Special Improvement District, that's our business improvement district. Super Bowl's coming up this Sunday. Explore Milburn Short Hills reminds everyone to shop local for the game. Whether you're getting wings, pizza, or more at local restaurants, grab your plates, cups, and all that at ShopRite. For game day, Explore is running the social media contest. We're winning a $50 gift card if you correctly guess the score of the game. So that's always fun. BOE liaison, Board of Education. I haven't given an update really in the last two meetings, so I'll just give a meeting here now. Their strategic planning process is well underway with the second full committee meeting occurred last night. There was good participation and contribution by staff, administration, parents, students, and community members. The MHS auditorium is nearing completion, not quite there yet, but it's getting pretty close. Hope to have the certificate of occupancy by mid-February. September 1st was the BOE open forum held at the middle school. Parents and community members had an opportunity to ask questions of administration and the board. And then additionally, there's a write-up on the new principal, Mr. Nixon, in this month's Milburn and Short Hills magazine that you guys could all see. Funny, he was pre-med before he went into education. And then lastly, the Milburn Middle School robotics team competed in the Livingston Robotics Vex IQ tournament last weekend, and they actually took 4 of the top 6 places. So that's going to be very strong for the years to come. And then that's it on BOE. What else we got here? So if there's not enough time in the week. Joint facilities on the fields. We've finally completed the shared services agreement that's making its rounds. If you want to take a look at it, it'll be available shortly. Actually, it might have already been made available to the public or not yet. It was, right? What? The shared fields agreement? Okay, good. So they'll have that. Just so everyone knows in the room, we take this position very seriously. We met. I got the communication from randomly that the shutdown for the New Jersey Transit. So I requested a meeting with our New Jersey Transit customer service rep and their direct report too. Frank joined me. We had a good discussion with Elizabeth Da Silva and Barbara Lazaro on the upcoming February 15th to March 15th shutdown, where the trains will not be going into Penn Station. For those of us who commute, it's a big deal. You go into Hoboken, you got to catch the path. And we wanted to talk about that in the need board. We're going to put in all of the communication and updates and PDFs and presentations they gave us on our website with a link directly to them. We also discussed, while I had the audience, Frank and I discussed the state of disrepair of our platforms in Milburn and in Short Hills. And we're going to actually move that forward, have a walkthrough of those stations and platforms when the weather breaks, and then also additional technology advancements that we can do on the station platforms, et cetera. All in all, it was an okay meeting. We were able to tell them our concerns. They listened, and they were going to seem fairly interested, and we'll see where that goes. What else we got? Open Space Tax Fund. We did not meet last week due to the snowstorm, so we've rescheduled that. Affordable housing, I'll defer to council. That's my reports, Mayor.
Great. Committeeman Cohen?
Just a few quick things. The library had its reorg, and Dorothy Kelly was elected as the president of the Board of Trustees. At the Arboretum, they had a very successful fundraiser, their annual Indian cooking night. It was a sellout. I attended that, and it was really a lot of fun, and also we learned a lot. And then lastly, the zoning code subcommittee met for its initial meeting. There'll be 3 ordinances making their way to our next meeting here. Most of them were, but 2 of them were involved with changes we have to make to the zoning code to support round 4 fair share housing agreements. That's it.
Great. Deputy Mayor Cosgrove?
Thank you, Mayor. A short report on historic preservation, HPC. They had a meeting, on a special meeting actually on the Woodfield Estates matter that's been referred. They voted that unanimously to go forward with that. It's on tonight here. Thank you.
Committeeman Scruto?
Just an update that the Shade Tree Advisory Board met and is continuing to get oriented with the technology that is available. And some praise to our forester, who's really diligent and organized, and looking out for our trees. Joint dispatch, our communications, will be meeting in a couple weeks. Alex and I serve on that board, and continuing to ensure we have adequate communications mechanisms to, prompt the first responders when necessary. Joint meeting of Essex and Union, our water treatment and sewage. Alex and I are going to be taking a look under the hood later this week, which will be very exciting to see how all that works up close and personal. And just would encourage everybody to stay safe. As the weather continues to be chilly, and if there's any snow in the future forecast, just be responsible on the roads. And thank you to the Department of Public Works and our first responders for really going above and beyond. I think we've seen that. And all of us up here, all of your concerns and responses, and unfortunately, issues you're having. But all in all, I think our team has done an amazing job. Thank you.
Right, so February is Black History Month, and as Mayor of Milburn, I am proud to recognize February as Black History Month. Time to honor the enduring contributions, achievements, and resilience of Black Americans who have shaped our nation, our state, and our local community. Black history is American history. It reflects courage in the face of injustice, leadership in times of challenge, and creativity that has enriched every aspect of our society, from science and education to culture, public service, and civil rights. This month is not only about reflection, but also about responsibility, to listen, to learn, and to continue building a township rooted in fairness, opportunity, and mutual respect. On behalf of the Township Committee, I thank our residents for their commitment to making Milburn a strong, welcoming, and united community where every individual has the opportunity to contribute and succeed. Planning Board, the last meeting was canceled, so we didn't have a meeting. The Environmental Commission is actively exploring ways to educate more residents about the seasonal restriction on gas-powered leaf blowers. They're also planning for Earth Day. Please contact them if you'd like to get involved with the Earth Day activities. Additionally, the EC will soon help roll out the first environmental resource inventory Milburn Short Hills has conducted in 12 years. The ERI will be web-based for the first time and will thus be more accessible than earlier editions, and will help all of us understand our town's environmental resources are changing. So next up, Rick Dunn, any reports?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just a few brief reports. One is that at the last Township Committee meeting, I was tasked with looking into two items in particular. One was the sidewalks around construction sites. I've been working with the Township Planner. We will be drafting an amendment to Chapter 15, which is our sidewalks ordinance in the general code for the Township Committee's consideration, and then make sure that there is the necessary improvements to the zoning code as it relates to that too. But that will likely be something that comes directly to the Township Committee, does not need to go through the zoning code examination subcommittee. In addition, I have reached out to Harbor Consultants regarding the special area of assessment when it comes to RSIS standards, RSIS projects, and the stormwater standards for those projects. I'm just waiting for a call back from Vic Vinegra, who's the consulting engineer over there, but we will get working on that as well in earnest for that change. In addition, Committeeman Cohen had brought up several ordinances that will be coming to the Township Committee for compliance with our fourth round housing element fair share plan. One of those is a model ordinance for the uniform housing and affordability controls that will replace our current ordinance. Another will be an overlay of the CMO and B4 site specific as it relates to the housing element fair share plan to increase the density on, again, site specific properties, and then the OR1 and OR3 to comply with the fourth round. Those are general revisions to that code. Well, one in particular is, I think, it's described in the housing element fair share plan for the Upton pad site to be developed for a 55 and over community. So I just wanted the community to be aware that those will be forthcoming in front of the Township Committee. We do have a March 15th deadline on those changes for compliance, and that the Township, particularly the Township Committee and the Citizen Committee that worked on that, did a great job. Our plan was not challenged, and so these are the last few things that we need to do to be in compliance for the fourth round. I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Council, you have any thoughts?
No, thank you.
Okay. In that case, next up, we have a presentation by the Standard Study Commission.
Mic working or right something?
No, that should pick you up. Just Jack.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Kung, and I serve as Secretary of the Charter Study Commission. Thank you to the Township Committee for providing time on tonight's agenda for us to update you and the public on our work. For those who may not have seen it, we presented our preliminary findings from interviews with municipal employees at our January 22nd commission meeting. That video is available on the Township website. Tonight, I'd like to provide context about our process, summarize key themes from what we've learned so far, and encourage continued public participation as our work continues. As a reminder, the Charter Study Commission was created after Milburn voters supported forming this body by a 65% to 35% margin in the November 2025 election. Our 5-member commission was sworn in on November 25th, 2025, and includes Chair Chris Drucker, Vice Chair Corey Biller, Treasurer Shawna Katana, Commissioner Joanna Parker-Lentz, and myself. This is the first time since 1972 that Milburn has formally examined its government structure. Our mandate is clear but limited. We will study Milburn's current Township Committee form of government, compare it with other alternatives permitted under state law, and issue a report on our plan. Let me emphasize, we have no authority to make any changes. If we recommend a change, it will go before voters in a referendum. Only Milburn residents can decide whether to change our form of government. Our work follows 3 phases. Phase 1, where we study our current system through interviews with municipal employees and elected officials. Phase 2, where we examine alternative government structures available under New Jersey state law. And Phase 3, where we deliberate, make our recommendation, and file our report. We're currently in Phase 1, the fact-finding. Before discussing what we've learned, it's important that we all share a common understanding of how Milburn's government currently operates. I know the folks up on the dais know this intimately, but for the benefit of the public and those watching at home, allow me to take some time to explain our current form of government. Milburn has operated under the Township Committee form of government since its incorporation in 1857. This is the oldest and most traditional form of municipal government in New Jersey. Our current structure includes 5 members elected at large in partisan elections, members who serve 3-year terms staggered such that there are elections every year with either 1 or 2 seats up for election, elections held in November with primary elections held in June. The Township Committee as a whole holds both legislative power, they make laws and policy, and executive authority, they oversee administration. There is no separation between these branches. The mayor is selected annually by committee members rather than directly elected by voters, and the mayor serves as first among equals with limited independent authority beyond what state law requires. While Milburn has always had Township Committee form of government, our current structure with a strong business administrator dates to the early 1980s. This is some important historical context. In 1972, Milburn's previous Charter Study Commission identified what they called a major deficiency. At the time, it was the lack of a professional administrator with full authority over township operations. They wrote that the business administrator at that time had no authority over the police department, the fire department, the recreation department, the library, or the public works department, which make up a substantial portion of the township workforce. In the early 1980s, Milburn chose to address this identified deficiency by centralizing administrative authority under a professional business administrator with full supervisory powers over all departments. This was a thoughtful and deliberate decision by the Township Committee at the time. Since that transition, Milburn has had remarkable stability in this critical position. Only 2 business administrators in approximately 40 years. Tim Gordon served from 1985 to 2016, and Alex McDonald has served since 2016. This updated structure provides for unified governance under a weak mayor system with professional administration. The business administrator appointed by the committee handles day-to-day operations, including preparing budgets, managing departments, overseeing contracts, and hiring staff. To date, we have conducted structured interviews with municipal employees across multiple departments. The business administrator, the municipal clerk, the assistant business administrator, the police chief and staff, the fire chief and staff, the DPW superintendent and staff, and the recreation director. Our methodology has been systematic. We've been working in pairs, and commissioners have conducted interviews organized around 6 topic areas. The first is authority, autonomy, and professional management. The second is governing body and political interaction. The third is planning, coordination, and long-term vision. The fourth is budgeting and financial management. The fifth is public engagement and accountability. And the sixth is comparative assessment and recommendations. Before sharing what we heard, I want to provide critical context that emerged consistently across all of our interviews. Municipal employees universally described 1, an exceptionally dedicated and professional workforce. 2, a strong reputation statewide for operational excellence. 3, a collaborative interdepartmental environment. 4, a business administrator leadership that provides clear direction while empowering appropriate departmental autonomy. And 5, a township that is generally well-run day-to-day. Department heads described working overtime, innovating solutions to complex challenges, and maintaining resident responsiveness that set the high standard for municipal government. Our focus as a commission is not on evaluating operational performance, but on examining whether the governmental framework provides the structure and stability to support township operations over the long term. The structural questions we're examining focus on whether the governmental framework maximally supports these talented professionals in sustaining and building upon this excellence. The observations that follow should be understood in this context. So here are some of the key preliminary findings that emerged from the interview. We're reporting on what we heard, importantly. We're not drawing conclusions or making recommendations at this stage. The first finding is that the strong BA reform works. Staff universally emphasized that the strong business administrator structure is critical to Milburn's success. One respondent put it bluntly: as long as the BA is in charge of the form of government, then all will be good. If there's no strong BA, then it would be like the Wild West. This confirms that the reform undertaken in the early 1980s addressing the concerns raised by the 1972 Charter Study Commission, has been absolutely vital to how Milburn functions today. Finding number 2, the effectiveness of the Township Committee depends on personalities. The current Township Committee was described very positively, with open discussions, members seeking consensus during public meetings, and appropriate boundaries between policy and operations. However, multiple respondents emphasize that this depends on who's on the TC, noting that this has not always been true during recent memory. Staff referenced dysfunction on Township committees prior to the current one. The consistent theme was that Milburn's current form of government works well when it works, but its effectiveness depends heavily on the particular individuals serving on the Township Committee at any given time. Staff repeatedly raised the question whether a governmental structure should rely so heavily on personalities in office, rather than providing more built-in stability and continuity. Finding number 3, a significant learning curve. There was strong consensus that Township Committee members face a significant learning curve. Staff reported that it takes about 3 years for TC members to completely understand how the job works, covering the full cycle of issues including bond ordinances, budget cycles, and various operational matters. One noted that there's no training, there's no idea when they start. The 3-year term was characterized as too short because the first year they're learning, the second year they start to understand, and the third year they're either running for re-election or a lame duck. Staff noted that when multiple TC seats are in flux, potentially 4 seats out of the 5 over the course of 2 years, there isn't carryover and projects aren't seen through to completion. As a data point, in the last 10 years, only 3 Township Committee members served 2 full terms, with none serving more than 2 terms. Finding number 4, election frequency. Election frequency generated the most consistent and emphatic responses across all our interviews. Annual elections were described as causing quite a bit of overhead, with Township Committee turnover requiring ongoing onboarding assistance. Multiple respondents described it feeling like it's always election season, with either a general or primary election occurring every 6 months, and that having elections every year causes reluctance to make big changes. A specific structural problem was identified. From election time in November until the end of January, when people are sworn in and a mayor is chosen, we can't do much. Sometimes it's tough to wait through that transition period. Staff cited concrete examples, one mentioning the town hall renovation that has been under discussion for 25 plus years, but stalled because elections happen so frequently, no one wants to take risks, and often projects can get stopped due to political expediency. Several respondents supported longer terms, 4 years rather than 3, and more time between elections. When asked what single change could be made to improve the township's governmental structure, the answer was overwhelmingly election frequency. Finding number 5, and there's 6 findings overall, so we won't be here all night, I promise. Partisan considerations. There was a clear divide in how partisanship affects township operations versus governance. Department heads universally stated that partisanship does not affect day-to-day operations. Departments were characterized as non-political, while multiple respondents emphasized their neutrality as public servants. As one said, there isn't really a partisan element to filling potholes or garbage cans. However, partisan considerations were identified as significantly affecting governance. Some quotes. Items get delayed around election time. TC meetings become more contentious around election time due to the partisan nature of elections. Partisan considerations cause unnecessary division. Instead of having a united front on the Township Committee, meetings get used to score political points rather than to focus on what's best for the community. Partisanship, particularly around election time, leads to a show which can get in the way of what's best for the town. Multiple respondents felt party labels shift the focus away from local issues, and noted that since most township matters are nonpartisan in nature, it's not clear that having a partisan election with party labels is helpful as a signal for how someone might vote once they're on the committee. Lastly, finding number 6, some other structural themes. The mayoral selection process was described as having recently become quite contentious. Staff noted that it creates adversaries where there's no need for it, with hurt feelings and lost trust, and that it's not a great way to start off the new year. One respondent stated that most people in town don't understand that they don't select the mayor directly, and suggested that having a directly elected mayor would allow for more stability rather than continuously changing who's indirectly selected to serve as mayor. Though it was cautioned that a strong mayor is probably not the right choice for our town. Staff repeatedly emphasized that having mayors serve longer terms rather than 1-year rotations would provide more continuity and stability for the public. And as for long-term planning, one respondent stated bluntly that long-term planning is not well supported because of lack of continuity due to frequency of elections. Those were the findings, and let me just be clear that these are preliminary findings from our interviews with municipal employees. We're simply reporting what we heard, and we're not drawing any conclusions or making recommendations at this stage of our work. Staff praised Milburn's current operations highly and consistently. The structural questions we're examining are whether the governmental framework maximally supports the excellent staff that we have, and whether there are ways to strengthen the structure to provide more stability, continuity, and effectiveness. The Commission has significant fact-finding work still ahead of us before we begin to analyze alternatives or formulate recommendations. For public engagement and next steps, our process is designed to be inclusive. We need and we welcome public participation. Here's how you can engage with our work. All Commission meetings are open to the public with opportunities for public comment. You can submit questions or comments to charterstudy@milburntwp.org. We have public hearings scheduled as our work progresses. You can always reach out to us to participate in a focus group, and extensive resources are available on the Township website, including explanations of all forms of municipal government available in New Jersey. Our next Commission meeting is Tuesday, February 10th, a week from today at 8 p.m. We'll be meeting at the Bauer Center with a Zoom option available for public comment. We're committed to conducting a rigorous and fact-based process. Our job is to provide Milburn residents with comprehensive information so they can make an informed decision about the government structure. We invite ongoing dialogue, questions, and participation as our work continues. And I'd also like to thank this opportunity to thank Committeeman Stoller and Committeeman Ceruto for participating in our public interview. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Penn. All right. Public comment. You're invited to speak. Offer your comments. Please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident, Milburn property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, because our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. Help facilitate an orderly meeting and permit all to be heard. Speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You'll be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. This is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter. This is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comment. Now open the public comment period.
Hi, I'm Trina Frankel, longtime Short Hills resident. I'm reading a letter from the Milburn Short Hills Democratic Committee. Milburn Short Hills Democratic Committee calls for swift justice and full accountability following the shootings of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Hood by federal immigration officers in Minneapolis, Minnesota, during enforcement operations last month. On January 7th, Renee Hood, a 37-year-old Minneapolis resident and mother, was fatally shot by a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent. 17 days later, on January 24th, 2026, Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old American citizen and registered nurse, who devoted his workdays to caring for our veterans, was shot and killed by U.S. Border Patrol agents as he tried to help a woman who had fallen after being pepper sprayed during protests related to the same federal immigration operation. We condemn these tragic and deeply troubling losses of life and demand full, independent investigations into the actions of the federal agents involved. No federal agency should operate without transparency, civilian oversight, and accountability. The FBI and Department of Justice must work in coordination with state and local authorities, as was routine under prior administrations. Alex Preddy was an intensive care nurse and a lawful gun owner with no criminal record. Video recordings reviewed by multiple national news organizations show Preddy filming law enforcement with his phone, directing traffic and attempting to help a woman who had been pushed to the ground by federal agents. He was pepper sprayed, wrestled to the ground by several agents, and shot at least 10 times within seconds, many shots in the back. No publicly available video evidence shows Preddy holding a gun while at the protest. Multiple trusted news outlets, including Reuters, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal, have reported that frame by frame analysis contradicts the administration's account. Witnesses, including a physician on scene, testified that Freddie was pinned to the ground and shot while surrounded by agents. Despite this evidence, the Trump administration and Department of Homeland Security have gone on TV to advance claims that are flatly contradicted by video footage, eyewitness testimony, and local officials. In short, they have lied repeatedly. And as occurred in the case of Renee Good, federal agents quickly blocked Minnesota and Minneapolis investigators from the scene of Freddie's killing.
Oh, it is a lot.
Microphone's not
It
on.
still works.
Have to project.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Stephanie Messer. I am a longtime resident of Short Hills. Federal officials have repeatedly claimed that lethal force was justified in both shootings, yet eyewitness accounts, multiple video recordings, and statements from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey severely undermine those narratives. The administration's willingness to issue inflammatory statements before any independent investigation in the face of contrary evidence is deeply alarming and corrosive to public trust. The First Amendment protects all Americans' rights to protest, to film law enforcement, and to render aid. When federal agents respond to those protected activities with violence and then misrepresent the facts, they put the constitutional rights of all Americans at risk, regardless of party affiliation. Why this matters in New Jersey. Although these killings occurred in Minnesota, their implications are national. In Milburn alone, there were 2 reported incidents last year of ICE officers detaining people off the street, one in the Wyoming neighborhood and one near the Milburn Diner. ICE does not notify municipalities when it operates and releases little information afterward. Officers often wear no identifying uniforms, intensifying fear in our communities. These practices disproportionately harm Black, immigrant, and other marginalized communities and damage trust in all government institutions. What you can do. If these killings and the lack of accountability disturb you too, we urge you to act. Contact your federal representatives and demand independent investigations into the killings of Renee Good and Alex Freddie. Ask your members of Congress to vote against any more funding for ICE and DHS until the executive branch puts meaningful oversight, transparency, and accountability mechanisms in place. Watch the videos of the Alex Freddie shooting on trusted news sites. Ask yourself whether your taxpayer dollars should support federal agents shooting an unarmed citizen who lies pinned to the ground. Learn your rights of civil protest so you can help keep our community safe. Push back against misinformation. Share verified reporting, eyewitness testimony, and video evidence when false narratives are repeated by officials. Justice depends not only on investigations, but on public insistence that truth matters. We stand in solidarity with the family and loved ones of Renee Good and Alex Freddie and with all of the communities nationwide that are demanding justice, truth, and accountability. We call for immediate independent investigations and systemic reform before more lives are lost. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kathy Azaro. I'm a current resident of Maplewood, but I grew up in Short Hills. See, my parents, Trina and Jeff Frankel, still live in the house that I grew up in. A couple weeks ago, a father was detained by ICE outside of University Hospital in Newark. He was on his way to visit his newborn son in the NICU, bearing newly pumped breast milk from his wife. Since then, the hospital has seen a dramatic decrease in undocumented patients seeking care for themselves and their children. Prior to leaving office, Governor Murphy signed into law New Jersey's Safe Communities Act. This law restricts federal immigration enforcement actions in sensitive locations, including hospitals. Unfortunately, the governor failed to sign 2 other bills included in the immigrant protection package, which would have prevented the sharing of information from places like hospitals, schools, and state agencies with federal immigration officials. Regardless of our political beliefs, I hope that as a community, we can agree that parents must feel safe in seeking health care for their children. To that end, I suggest the following be implemented at all hospitals and healthcare facilities in our community. 1, training for hospital and healthcare employees to help them understand what federal immigration enforcement is allowed to do and what they are not allowed to do, both at healthcare facilities and in the community. 2, signage around healthcare facilities to indicate which areas are off limits to federal immigration enforcement. And these signs should be available in languages that represent the communities they serve. 3, distribution of Know Your Rights cards to undocumented and documented immigrant families. 4, providing a televisit option for families that require them when it's appropriate. So for families that are afraid to leave their homes. 5, establishing a communication network so that healthcare staff are notified when there's immigration enforcement activities in the vicinity. And finally, we should all urge our state legislators and Governor Sherrill to immediately pass the remainder of the Immigrant Protection Package, what was formerly the Immigrant Protection Act. No parent should be concerned that by taking their sick child to the doctor, they are risking having their address and other information shared with federal immigration officials.
Good evening, Bill Kirsch, Milburn resident. I have maybe something with a more personal, local focus. I'm speaking tonight as a follow-up to my request before this body back in July to have the township police and attorney lay out for us in a public meeting what specifically are our rights and more specifically our defenses when we encounter federal immigration officers. The last time I spoke, the Fourth Amendment was cited as protection we would have. But in the weeks since, as we have seen, unless our copy is bulletproof, it's not going to do us much good. Specifically, what should I do if, for example, in the course of driving my grandchildren through town, I'm caught in a traffic jam and a group of armed masked men breaks my window or pulls me out of the car? If I have time, can I call 911 and get a response from our police force? What are their limits in dealing with masked armed men who say they are federal agents? There are many complications in such situations, in which I hope this township committee wants to protect residents and also keep our local police from breaking any regulations. But let's be clear, ICE has barreled through constitutional search and seizure and free speech, even Second Amendment rights. So we can't pretend that we are still in our traditional world of legal protections. Township government needs to make clear to all residents of whatever racial or national background what we can expect from our local law enforcement and from them. So I think that at the very least, this topic should be on the agenda for the next meeting. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to speak about a different topic. My name is Arjun Iyengar. Milburn resident. We just moved to work in the Woodfield section of Fort Hills. He proposes a historical designated site. I grew up a lifelong resident of Essex County. My parents are in Livingston, where I grew up in the house that they still live in. Did all my formative schooling in Short Hills at Farbrook and then at Pingree. I'm well aware of this community, why I came back here to live. So I'm convinced my Long Island born wife to move from the city to here. So I just want to begin by acknowledging the important role that historic preservation plays in Milburn. Thoughtful preservation is essential when a place has a clear, cohesive, and well-documented historic identity that warrants permanent protection for the public good. With respect to Kenilworth, however, with respect to this Woodfield section, we believe the threshold has not been met. The Woodfield section does not function as a unified historic district. Its homes span multiple construction periods and architectural styles, and many have been substantially altered over time. In fact, one was just demolished earlier this week. This reflects normal residential evolution rather than a singular, intact, historic narrative appropriate for a district-wide designation. It's important to recognize that historic designation is not symbolic. It's a permanent regulatory overlay. It introduces mandatory design review and long-term restrictions that affect renovations, energy efficiency improvements, accessibility modifications, and families' ability to adapt their homes to changing needs. These are real and lasting private impacts, and they should only be imposed when the public historic benefit is clear, cohesive, and compelling. While the historic designation is sometimes said to protect property values, the evidence is mixed and highly location-specific. For many homeowners, designations can narrow the buyer pool, complicate financing, increase renovation costs, and create uncertainty around future improvements. These trade-offs are especially significant in a neighborhood that lacks architectural uniformity at the district level. This is not a question of whether the Woodfield section has character. It does. That character is already protected through existing zoning, strong community norms, and voluntary stewardship. Many homeowners preserve architectural features because they value them, not because they're required to. Preservation of the Woodfield section is already happening organically, without the need for an irreversible regulatory framework. Finally, we all agree that preservation should not freeze neighborhoods in time. In practice, historic designation can do exactly that over decades. Even well-intentioned oversight can constrain sustainability upgrades, accessibility improvements, and family-driven modifications that reflect how people actually live today. For these reasons, we respectfully urge the Township Committee to exercise caution and conclude that a formal historical designation for the Woodfield section is not warranted. Thank you.
Hello, Kim, our resident. I just have two comments. One on the agenda item related to the athletic fields. I think it's sort of a mixed bag for this one, and I would actually request that it be reviewed. I think it's fantastic that the town is going to coordinate development of fields and expand athletic opportunity with the BOE. I think the selection of the field type is flawed. I attended the recent information session, and I didn't hear a very compelling reason that why natural turf was not pursued. I think it's a very large investment in a material that's basically environmentally harmful. It's not an ideal surface for athletes to play on. I know that from experience. And I'd really ask you to revisit the material. Otherwise, I think it's fantastic that the town is going to invest in athletic fields. Second comment I want to just make is the historic preservation. I think it's excellent that the town is pursuing that. I think, if anything, I think you should look to expand the scope of that and look at other neighborhoods, probably, throughout Short Hills District especially. Thanks.
Good evening, my name is Jeffrey Feld, I live in the poet section. I incorporate by reference from some of my prior written comments about tonight's agenda on Milburn politics. I want to talk about first, there are 3 tax appeal resolutions on today's agenda. And I don't understand the lack of disclosure and transparency. One involves a residence where you state what the sum of the settlement is. We have 2 others that involve commercial real estate on JFK. And the sums that are part of the settlement, you really cannot determine from the 4 corners. Also, if we are paying monies, it's my understanding of state law that there has to be availability of fund certifications attached to the legislation. I do not find any. This is a continuing problem. When you did the change order for the paper mill playhouse, I raised that question that the certification of fund certification was not attached. It's very interesting that the 150 JFK project we heard before that can be used for round 4. Originally promised us a hotel, now it's going to be 55 plus senior housing. As to 103, 105 JFK, same question. What is the sum of the settlement? How are we paying? Are we going to use our tax appeal reserve to place it? What I found interesting is that we're agreeing to assess the value for future years. But the new owner of this property issued a press release saying that they obtained funding, 5-year funding, and the value of the funding is in excess of what we're agreeing to assess value, and I don't know how they do that. As to the high school field, I too agree that maybe we should postpone it from one cycle. One reason being, you all pledged transparency, but the agreement was not attached for the public to read. Also, the source of funding. It is not clear today whether the share portion that's going to be funded by the township is going to be funded by bond ordinance or by the open space tax. And I think before you take action, I think the public's entitled to know, again, based on the certification of availability of funds, what is the source of funding this project? Last meeting, there was reference to an offering statement and bond anticipation notes. I want this township committee to look at the 4-page offering statement. At the end of it, there are 2 conflicting statements, 2 sentences, because under the offering statement, it seems that we are prohibited from issuing bonds to fund any projects in calendar year 2026. At the last public meeting, I asked for a chronology of what we need, so don't get their pieces. Thank you. I just asked you to postpone.
Anyone else from the audience? Or move online?
Right. Al Collin, a 32-year resident of New Jersey Transit. Many problems, and last Friday it was cold outside. And they had many problems, and there were many people on the platform, and no one knew when the train was coming. And the apps did not work. That's no good. They do not tell the public. New Jersey Transit does not tell the public the train is coming, it's leaving. If it's canceled, the apps don't work. When I finally got on a train on my way to New York, the gentleman, the conductor said, get off, because we don't know when we're going to be in New York, because there's a problem. So I got off in Newark and I was able to get to Hoboken and so forth. But this is a constant problem. Now, there might be a little bit of a solution. Perhaps we can have some more better communication at Millbury Station for 1 month at least. A little bit of public relations. In other words, having someone there to say, okay, this train is going to be delayed or not delayed, because trains are going to go to Hoboken. And trains do get delayed, especially if there's something new happening. As you know about Hoboken, do you not? You know about delays. And coming back from New York last Friday, I made it to Penn Station and coming back, no one knew what track, what train was going to be on. The information center, the information at Penn Station is not always adequate. It's very, very simple. I've been riding trains for many, many years, whether it be in Europe, in Asia, South America. And New Jersey Transit has some problems. I think we all know. Another problem is people were complaining that when they buy tickets, there's a 30-day expiration. So we're there and all of a sudden, well, the train's canceled, so people leave and then they have this ticket. What can we do with these tickets? Well, yeah, here are the tickets. And can't use them anymore. 30 days, no good. Return them, go. This is not a good idea. Used to be a year. Now it's 30 days. Even MTA, which is not the greatest either, they give you 60 days. Let's think about it. And especially for seniors. Seniors, I think, deserve a little bit of a break. I'm a senior right now. When I came here, I was not. And I used it, I've been here a little over 30 years. And I came here because of NJT. And I'd like to stay here a little bit longer. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Anyone else from the audience?
Yeah, my name is Ted Kuntz. I live in Short Hills. I've been here about almost 40 years. I just wanted to comment on this discussion about the historical district discussion. I was trying to get my arms around this, and I think the main arguments against creating one is it infringes on property rights and homeowners' freedom. It adds bureaucracy, increases delays, and makes renovation changes and could increase overall cost. Third, it can lower property values as restrictions reduce redevelopment options. It can make older homes seem like costly albatrosses, which in turn deters future buyers. It can restrict the development of affordable housing and urban growth. And it can be used to stop unwanted projects rather than focusing on genuine historical preservation goals. So these are the arguments you can make against it. But I'm looking at these arguments that support this anti-intervention efforts are focused on individual rights and focus on having a complete market freedom. I would like to argue that why there is a case against having big government interference, as you want to call it, there's a stronger case for focusing on the benefits of having historical designation when the focus is on enhanced property values, more stability in the neighborhood, and more local control. Let's just focus on the economic issues. There are many studies and examples showing that having historical districts and maintaining their charm often increases property values faster than non-designated areas. Just in our area alone, Montclair has at least 5 historical districts. South Orange has at least 7. And without historical designation, neighborhoods run the risk of style degradation where only 1 or 2 owners decide to do out-of-character renovations or teardowns, which can hurt everyone's home curb appeal and resale value. The market rewards and attracts buyers who value a more cohesive neighborhood character. Historical designation is a sort of a mutual commitment to protect everyone's investment. And what was surprising to me is not the fact that Montclair and South Orange have so many more districts, historical districts, is that Milburn has so few. I think they may know something that we don't. They're very active on historical designations. The Historic Preservation Commission is focused on the exterior of the house only and does not stop renovations. The goal of this group is to protect and enhance your investment and not hinder or destroy it. I just recently put a new roof on my house, which is historic, and built in 1885. The permit took exactly 1 week to get at no additional cost. So I've got 18 minutes, 18 seconds. Okay, I guess I would encourage the committee to vote in favor of declaring the Woodfield Estates historical. It'd be a vote in favor of enhancing property values over the long term, a vote for greater stability of the neighborhood. There'd be a vote for encouraging local control, a backstop for a mutual self-interest and with very minimal government intervention. And most important, it'd be a vote for our future generations to be able to continue enjoying living in such a special community that we have.
Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Ozawa. I am currently a resident in the Woodfield area. I think, I agree with a lot of the sentiment he had about maintaining the historic nature and the beauty of it. I bought into the area because I love it. I really do. And I would love for things to stay like they are, houses to stay the same. But the fact of the matter is, to be historic, under the rules, it has to be the significant concentration, linkage, or continuity of buildings. And the way this proposal's been set out, it's just not, it's overbroad. It's haphazard and it's based on limited information. For example, I live on a street where the other side of the street is not part of this designation. And on my street between Parsonage Hill and Oakey, only 2 of 18 homes are contributing. And in the pamphlet that is the main basis for the determination of, the homes that are historic, it's 2 years before my home was created. So there's no basis in what the information they provided and why my home is a contributing home. Now, again, I'm happy to, it's not really about whether or not I want to make changes that I don't want to make changes to the home. I don't ever plan to make changes. But if you took my home off my street, there'd be 1 of 18 that are contributing. And half of those 18 are not even part of this list. So to say that you're trying to maintain the historic nature of my street seems completely unreasonable. Like, I don't see how any lay person could say that that is contributing to the historic nature. So from a perspective of, is this properly tailored for what the goals are, to maintain historic districts, to maintain historic streets, to keep a preserved, continuity of architecture and history? I just don't think it is. I'm not saying that I'm against it altogether, but I do think that there's no way that in the way that it's formulated now with a straight face, we can say that the district they're setting forth is the historic district of the Woodfield Estates. It just doesn't make sense in the context of who they're subsuming into it. And I think because of that, right, it's adversely affecting people, myself and others, who shouldn't be part of that, right? I think we should revisit this and narrowly tailor it to what the purpose of the historic society is. And I think it's perfectly fair that there should be historic areas. And if we want to talk about what those should be and building it out in this community, that is great. I think it is good for the community, but I do think it's good in the way that it's being formulated here. It's way overbroad and I don't think it's appropriate.
Hi, excuse me, I'm Bill Brazell. I'm a resident of South Mountain and the chair of the Environmental Commission. I'm up here just to echo Reed Kemp. The Environmental Commission has not yet had a chance to discuss the turf fields, but a number of the members have contacted me with concerns. We weren't able to make the informational meeting where the fields were discussed because our commission met the same evening. But the economic analyses that I have seen suggest very strongly and seem to demonstrate that our artificial turf fields cost a lot more over a 10-year period than fixing the actual real grass. I totally understand, and I think all of us do, that we want our kids to be able to play more. And I completely get the motivation of let's make it possible for everybody to have more playing days. What if we could manage the fields so that they could play on actual grass that was well managed, that also reduces the risk of injury? I'm sure all of us have heard about turf toe and some of the other terrible injuries that athletes typically get on turf that they wouldn't get on a grass field. There was a recent column in the Washington Post by a physician who said that he will never allow his children to play on artificial turf because of the very large percentage of carcinogens that tends to end up in the fill. I'm not coming here with any kind of a decision. I guess I'm just here with a request. Let's please not rush this decision. When you decide to put in turf, it's a decision with very long-term ramifications. I would love to have more time for the community to weigh in on this decision. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the committee, mayor, and neighbors. I'm Eve Slater. I live in the area that's designated for the historic district, the Woodfield Historic District. And I'd like to voice my support of the designation. I've lived in my house within that district for almost 42 years. So I've been a Milburn resident for that period of time. My sons attended the public schools here. In fact, one of them has just been inaugurated mayor of a neighboring city in New Jersey. We have a wonderful neighborhood, and I'm really sorry that this issue has become seemingly so divisive for reasons that, quite frankly, I don't understand. As I see it, we have a very special area, and while we're not designed as a gated community, and yes, you're right, some houses look similar and others don't. There is actually a common bond, and the common bond happens to be the foliage and the trees that exist in our area that were planted originally by the Lord and Taylor family and belonged to their original estate. Some of those trees, some on my property, some on my neighbors, are over 100 years old. And sadly, many of those trees are gone when properties are destroyed, torn down, and properties are subdivided, and there's renovations and home flipping and demolitions, and I think, quite frankly, we simply are at risk. We are vulnerable for further subdivisions, even if you do the math, and even if it's only maybe 3 homes right now. If you divide those up, those are 6 out of 56. It's about 10%, and that's 10% of our neighborhood is vulnerable to being torn down, flipped by people who have no loyalty to the community, no neighborly feelings whatsoever, and are just there because they're developers. So I'm simply asking for the committee to consider our request. We do believe we have an historic identity, and we like living where we do. Thank you.
Hello, Leah Cruz. I have lived in town over 25 years. I'm here in support of the historic designation of Woodfield Estates. I think we should try to preserve some of the charm that makes Millburn special. I actually live in the Knollwood section, not Woodfield Estates, and I'd like to actually see the Knollwood neighborhood designated as a historic district. And if that should ever come to the township committee for a vote, I wonder how many people from Woodfield Estates would come out and object to that designation of my neighborhood. My guess is probably none. And I'm here in support of this designation because I care about all of Millburn Short Hills, not just my neighborhood. So I hope you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Hi, Debbie Franks, Millburn resident. I'm not here to say one way or another about Woodfield, but I will say that I live in an historic home in a designated section. We put it on an addition to my house in '01. And yes, there were a couple more hoops to jump through. There were, but I think for the most part, people often have feel that it is a whole lot more onerous process than it is in actuality. I mean, it really is from the curbside. It has nothing to do with whatever can be seen beyond that, as well, this is how it looks from the curb. It does not impact what you do inside of a house. Sometimes there seems to be a thing where people believe that if you do anything to your house whatsoever, you have to go before the Preservation Commission, that that it's going to be a real problem, that you're going to be kept from doing things that you need to have done. In my experience, and the experience of other people who live in the district who have done work in their homes, that really hasn't been the case. I think sometimes it's a little bit of a fear of what might change and how drastic those changes may be. And I do not see from my experience that that's truly been borne out. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to appreciate and acknowledge, I'd like to appreciate the mayor's acknowledgement of Black History Month. And, also the contribution of Black families in our town. I will also want to express my support for the historic designation of the Woodfield Estates. I didn't say my name, Queen Magical Dewey Milburn. So I would also like you to give me an opportunity to read something from a prominent architect in town. And the reading goes, I support the designation because I'm gonna read it as though he's the one reading it. So I support this designation because I've seen firsthand how these frameworks protect property value and neighborhood character when done correctly. I want to speak directly to the neighbors' concerns. Historic designation is not a no, it is a how. In my professional experience, the most successful historic districts aren't museums. They are living, breathing neighborhoods that allow for modern additions and sustainable upgrades. We follow the Secretary of the Interior standard, which actually discouraged copy pasting the old style. We aren't asking people to build 1930s replica. The goal is a thoughtful dialogue between old and new. We want to ensure that new construction respects the scale, massing, and materials without stifling architectural creativity. A historic district protects you from what happens next door. It ensures that a demolition or a massive out-of-scale McMansion doesn't destroy the cohesion that makes the area valuable in the first place. We are protecting the streetscape, which is a collective asset owned by all of us. When the rules are clear, the design is better and the neighborhood wins, and I agree with this. Thank you.
Venkat Bala, President of Melbourne Short Hills, and a proud father of two kids who go to school in Melbourne Short Hills with the kids. We're able to see different parts of the revolutionary history as well as our state as such, which predates our founding of the Republic. So that being said, I do strongly support the historical foundation that has been set up and designation so that this is preserved as a time capsule. On the contrary, with the rapid developments that have taken place on Melbourne Avenue, and also having suffered from few of these attacks that have taken place of planes running into buildings and other stuff, we always see that there is no gap between the construction process and how close they are to the road. So I always look fear and threat with a great deal of anxiety when I'm taking my kids around the town, where I see like the construction almost being very close to the road. The last point is that as we celebrate our 250th anniversary of the Republic, what do we preserve and what do we pass on to the future generations? So there is a fine line between community development, affordable housing, but most importantly, who we are as a country and what progress that we have made. So we need to capture that with the Historical Preservation Society as we celebrate this monumental achievement. Thank you.
I'm Ellen Steinberg, and I'm speaking in opposition to the historic designation. As we've heard, our town, and as we know, our town has numerous zoning and building ordinances, setbacks, frontage, side lots, permits. Anyone who has done work is aware of what the town protects and what is required. The historic designation, if it is approved, all 53 homeowners, whether contributing or not, will now be subject to another layer of red tape. Projects will have to be approved through a subjective review by the Historic Preservation Commission. And if you go to the website, they have a design guideline for historic districts. It's 109 pages. According to their website, you'll read something called a certificate of appropriation. That is for the repairs and replacements of roofs, porches, sidings, decks, additions, demolitions, windows, doors, stairs, railings, fences, walls, sideways, driveways, anything that is visible from a public right of way. And if you have a corner lot, good luck. This is a certificate of appropriateness application. You need photographs, drawings, descriptions. There's a fee to submit. There's escrows that are required. There's time that is involved to get this, and there's an appearance in front of the Historic Preservation Commission. And this applies to both contributing and non-contributing homes. And the commission may require the subsequent submission of additional materials if it chooses. And if you don't comply, there are forms. There are currently 52 standing homes in the proposed district. The owners of 29 of them have already raised an objection to the designation. Initially, we were told that the designation would protect us against subdivision, but in reality, there are only 3 lots that could potentially be split, and they're subject to set lots in current zoning laws. Now we're being told that the historic designation can protect us against affordable housing, like building a 32-unit structure on an 8/10 acre lot. These emails are coming from our mayor. We have zoning that protects this. And if state law someday would override zoning on our district, why wouldn't it override historic requirements? Will the state make the building have a slate roof? I've lived here over 20 years. I love my house. I love this community and the people in it, but this designation is not something that the majority of homeowners want in this district. Please don't force it on us. Thank you.
Hi, Chris Heinrichs, Melbourne resident. First off, thank you, Dr. Kung, for that very thorough and informative report, and thank all the commissioners for doing that work. Very important. Looking forward to the full recommendations of the committee. Secondly, on the athletic fields, it seems like it's taken us a decade to get to this point and have some momentum to get it done. There's always a reason. Can't we look at this? Can't we do that? Can't we do that? I would say no. Like, get the fields done. Third, I don't think anybody's talked about it. There's a long-term strategic planning board or something of that similar name that you guys are discussing. I very much am supportive of that proposal. I think it can do a lot of good for the community. What I'm most interested in is it being a vehicle of making choices. Any one-off decision presented to a body like this, it's sort of easy to approve. However, when you put up, oh, project A, B, or C, which one do you want to do? Because we only have X dollars, and if you do this one, that puts needed infrastructure like the firehouse off 5 more years. So we don't seem to have a vehicle to make those decisions and compile all that information. I hope that's something that this committee could do. So I'm very supportive of that. And if there's room, I'd be happy to help organize and participate in that committee. Lastly, Woodfield Estates, I actually am about 2 streets away. I bike and walk through that neighborhood all the time. Fantastic. So I'm not directly affected by it, but I've been here 15 years. Our neighborhood has changed tremendously. It seems like the pace of change is accelerating. Normally, I'm a small government person. Any attempt to put additional regulation infringing on my individual rights, I would bristle against and say, don't do it. However, this is an area we need more protection in. I feel like we are losing our town. Just listening to the dialogue and what I know, there are definite costs with this, there are restrictions, but I think the benefits far outweigh the cost to protect our town. A lot of residents, I'm 15 years, I feel like a junior to some of these people that have spoken, but there are a lot of residents who come in for a short term, whether it's for work or for the schools, and leave, and their threshold for these changes are lower than the long-term residents. I think this is a good protection against that. Thank you.
I'll put some like Judith Christian. My family moved here in when I was in 3rd grade. And I was not here. I've been back here for maybe 25 years. I just wanted to say I'm in support of any historic preservation community. I think I live in the Wyoming section. I think one of the things that preserving the character of a community does is it fosters community. The people who live there have shared interests in their neighborhood. And I think some of the requirements for making changes in the historic district, I think it's been exaggerated. And just a caveat, my father was on the historic commission many years ago, so thank you.
Alex McConnell, Short Hills resident. Rarely do I come up and speak, but I do feel very strongly about this topic. So, why do you live in Milburn Short Hills? I always ask a lot of residents that question. Oftentimes when I speak to them, they mention one or both of the same reasons. Our high-ranking public school system and convenient access to Manhattan,
by Midtown Direct service into New York. But are these the only things that make this town special? Neither of these attributes existed at the town's founding. Millburn's public schools would not become what we recognize today until decades later. And direct train service to New York wasn't realized until late 1990s. Yet people were drawn here long before these benefits. Short Hills, which at a time was one of the first planned communities, not just in New Jersey, but in the nation. Short Hills in particular was planned back in the late 1800s by Stuart Hartshorne as more than just a commuter suburb. It was conceived through careful contemplation, a community defined by thoughtfully designed and sited homes that conformed with the natural landscape. Architecture was not incidental, it is a central identity to the town. The historic homes of Short Hills, many of which Hartshorne continued to influence in the construction of until his death in the late 1930s, tell the story of that vision. Each house reflects a set of values and approach to craftsmanship that cannot be replicated once it is lost. Together, these homes create a sense of place that is immediately recognizable and deeply rooted. They are what make Short Hills feel like Short Hills. Creating this historic district in the Woodfield Estates area town is not about resisting change or freezing the town in time. It is about honoring the very qualities that made this community desirable in the first place. The schools and the train enhance it, but they are not what give the town its soul. That comes from the architecture, the scale, and intentional design that endured for over a century. If we allow those defining elements to be eroded, we risk becoming just another suburb. By preserving the historic homes and character of this town, we protect the foundation upon which everything else was built and ensure that future generations experience not just a place to live, but also a place with history and identity. Thank you.
Jean Pasternak, 28-year resident. Pleased to let the community know about an effort Democrat committee member and my neighbor Jorge Masper Pietro and I'm the Republican committee chair, along with some other neighbors, launched. Our group met about 2 weeks ago. We invited the mayor to join us. We believe the ICE activity is a vital matter of community safety and education that transcends politics. We have been organizing a community information session that will be in webinar format. It's designed to help our neighbors navigate the current landscape regarding ICE activity. Our primary goal is to educate the community on their legal rights and provide clear guidance on how to act should ICE activity occur locally. This will take place tentatively on Sunday, February 22nd at 3 p.m. Panelists include immigration attorneys, advocacy organizations, legislators, law enforcement rep, and possibly ACLU New Jersey. Details will be advertised to our entire community once we have all the panelists finalized this week. We welcome all to participate. On the Woodfield Estates Historic Designation Ordinance, I think it's important to emphasize the context of why historic designation in Millburn Short Hills is a key approach to having any chance to protect the exceptional bucolic town we all were drawn to live in. The Affordable Housing Law was passed in 2024, mandating even more dense housing in Millburn Short Hills, thousands more units. 2, the ADU legislation, accessory dwelling unit legislations that is currently being considered, S2347, concerns development and use of accessory dwelling units to set statewide ADU definitions and require municipalities to permit ADUs with defined standards. A3567 concerns development of accessory dwelling units and related municipal land use regulations. And New Jersey Senate Bill S4736 is intended to enhance, this is quote, enhance the ability of religious and nonprofit organizations to convert certain property to inclusionary developments with affordable housing. While this bill text is introduced as short on explicit zoning override language, its policy intent, as described by the sponsor's office, is to facilitate and accelerate the development of affordable housing on property owned by faith-based and tax-exempt nonprofit organizations, and enable conversions or partial conversions of existing nonprofit-owned land into inclusionary developments that include affordable housing. We really have little left to defend our town against onslaught of state politicians and developers to overdevelop our town. I hope you'll support this. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Laura Overdeck, and I live in the Woodfield Estates neighborhood that we're discussing for designation. I really appreciate that people who've actually gone through historic renovations have not had a bad experience. And I think that we have a very reasonable historic commission, and I think encouraged everybody to talk to them if they have concerns about their own house. So that's the first point. Secondly, it actually is not haphazard. The district that's been drawn, which goes down the middle of the street, is exactly the 1926 estate of Taylor, that Taylor Park is named after. So that's why houses are in it or out. And of the 54 houses, almost half of them, 26, are built in 1929 or around that time. I mean, there are a lot of old houses. They're really beautiful. And I just want to emphasize that they're like an endangered species. You know, they're beautiful, they're dwindling in number, and once they're gone, you cannot get them back. You cannot build a new house that really looks like that. And I, you know, having grown up a few miles from here, growing up, Short Hills was sort of this mythical, almost magical place because of what it looked like. And I don't think it quite has that patina anymore. And I'm telling you, if you let everything go, it's just gonna lose it. And it is gonna become ordinary, and the property values will go down. I'm interested that Jean before me mentioned this bill at the state level. That is a real threat. It right now allows LLCs to buy a property and develop it. There right now is no minimum lot size. You don't have to subdivide. And this bill is highly likely to go through. This isn't theoretical. The party pushing it has a 57-23 majority in the assembly. Like, it's gonna pass. So we're sitting ducks for this. And I thought, well, you know, what would that look like to have one of these things built? Now, I am not an artist, but I'm a scientist. So I did this to scale. This is the street in our neighborhood. And you know, when you have something like this show up across the street, when you're surrounded by tutors, you're just gonna grit your teeth every day that you drive out of your driveway. My parents lived this in Westfield. It's soul killing because your home is no longer your oasis. You just wrecked how everything looks. And I think we have to think about what we're willing to do to our town and having it decay like that. And I do want to point out, I'm in an old home on a corner. I'm totally happy to have protection and maybe a little extra hassle in return for not having this. So I, you know, and a lot of people who support it who are not here today because they're away, but have said they've written to the town who support this are also in old homes. And we're willing to do it because we don't want this. So.
Can we see the picture?
Oh, sure. That's a real building and I did it to scale. And by the way, you could put a lot more on that property. That lot happens to be 0.9 acres. It would support 36
Unfortunately,
units.
you're public comment times.
I'm
So I
sorry.
have to be fair to everyone else, but thank you for showing us the picture. There is another public comment period at the end of the meeting. This applies to everyone.
Sure. Oh, do you want me to read the picture?
Yes, please.
Looks like Hampton Inn.
That's probably because of my art skills.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Friedman, live in the mountaintop section, and I came up here during the Historic Preservation Commission, I guess 2 weeks ago. So don't want to repeat myself too much. Just some random thoughts. Mountaintop itself was built in the late 50s, early 60s. Would never consider it a historic district. But there are these really amazing, beautiful neighborhoods in Short Hills, which does make this town set itself apart from other towns. Also want to just say again that I am a very much in my DNA, a small government person. And in the past, when I was in towns, made different neighborhoods historic, I would be like, gee, I think that's, you know,
one mountain too far to go over, but the political landscape has changed in this area, in this state. And as Ms. Pasternak had mentioned before, this bill S4736 would make any kind of nuisances of a historic requirements be child's play. And it was, Ms. Pasternak mentioned it before, I won't go through it. But I think that this would be one of a multi-layered set of deterrents that I think that this town should seriously consider to prevent the taking away of, in essence, our property rights. Secondly, I did have a chance to go through the Whitfield section right before the meeting 2 weeks ago. And it is a very special neighborhood. And even though there's 25 homes that were built in that certain type of Tudor style, it set the tone for the rest of the neighborhood. And the landscaping reflects the design of those original 25 homes. Also, an eyesore was built in our neighborhood by speculators who have absolutely no allegiance, no loyalty to the surrounding neighborhoods, and they built a house that was completely out of proportion. I can live with it, just something to think of. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Peter Humphreys. I've lived in Short Hills for I think 34 years, I you can. I'm speaking against designating the area as a historic district. I've lived in that area 34 years. I'm going to tell something you know this. You can't just take a random district in the town and say it's a historic district. There are rules set forth in the zoning ordinances that define what a historic district has to be. What does it have to be? There have to be a concentration of houses that are historically or architecturally significant and were developed under a plan. That's what it says. We don't need that. Okay, the Historic Preservation Commission is obligated to identify these types of buildings in the town. There are 47 buildings that I've identified in Milburn Short Hills. Hartshorn houses, Christchurch. None are in our neighborhood. We don't have any of these buildings. None. So what did they try to do? They tried to tie historical precedent to the Taylor family and the Hartshorns. Well, the Taylor manor was demolished years ago. It doesn't stand. Hartshorn died in 1917. So he had nothing at all to do with the houses that were built in our district. The HPC has got no information in its presentation to you about architecture or architects. They named one architect, but he's really a minor guy, and he didn't even build, as far as I can tell, he didn't design any of the houses built in our neighborhood. We don't have any Frank Lloyd houses. We don't have any Sullivan skyscrapers in our district. So what about a plan? Well, when I look out my window, I can see a 28 house with a modern extension. I can see an empty lot, which is a soccer goalpost. I can see a Greek revival. I can see a Georgian revival. I can see another 28 house, 2 modern houses. There isn't a plan. There's no plan here. These houses were built from time to time. They were built independently. It's a collection of beautiful homes, but there's no overall plan. Serendipity is not a plan. So you have a document in the report. It's also not a plan. It's just a sales brochure. Now we live in a beautiful neighborhood. We definitely live in a beautiful neighborhood. If you were going for a beautiful neighborhood designation, we would be in it. No question. We live in beautiful homes. But why are they beautiful? They're beautiful because all of us there are respectful to our neighbors. We look after our homes. We've been doing it for decades. Nobody told us how to do it. We just learned and we did it. We are grown-ups living in our neighborhood. We're grown-ups living in an adult. Yes.
Sorry, time is.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Be fair to everyone. Is anyone in the audience still waiting to speak? Anyone online?
They're people on Zoom.
They're going there now.
They're voting.
Yay, Lomax is first.
Here, we can see you.
Oh, hi. Thank you, everybody. I've just noticed I've got a crazy background for Christmas still. So my name is Kathleen Lomax. I live in the Woodfield area, 1 Oak Lawn. I've been living in this community of Woodfield for 12 years and in Short Hills since 2004. We were so excited when we were able to move into our current house, and I'm very in support of historic designation. Now, my house is from 1941. I am on a corner, and I'm very, very concerned about the legislation that several people have mentioned. I think historic designation would be one of our only tools to fight against people who would come into our area without any concern for community norms, stewardship. They would be able to overlook any zoning rules we have. And so again, if we had historic designation, we'd at least have something to fight back and preserve the quality of this beautiful neighborhood. Thank you.
Next is Melissa C.
Melissa, if you could please turn on your video.
Trying. Technology is not my strong suit. Okay. Hi, how are you? I live in the Woodfield Estates neighborhood. I have lived there for 10 years. My name's Melissa Sifu, sorry. I've been in Short Hills for over 25 years. I lived in the Deerfield section beforehand. I feel like a firsthand experience of seeing what happens to neighborhoods when there are not parameters set on what you can do and how you can do it. I have a dog, and most of my neighbors, many of whom have gotten up to speak tonight, know my dog. His name is Oreo. Part of the most wonderful things about being in our neighborhood is walking on the loops, as we call them, Woodfield to Grosvenor to the other side of Woodfield, Kenilworth, all around. It really is a special neighborhood. From the cobblestone gutters, which my house is not a historic house. It was built in 2004 by the prior owner, but it is built in a very traditional manner. It's a center hall colonial that looks like it fits in the neighborhood. In fact, the prior owner had paved over the cobblestones. I unpaved them and redid the cobblestones so they did fit within the nature of the neighborhood. It is such a special neighborhood. I walk miles every day with my dog, and there's nowhere else that I would want to live. And most of that is because of the way the neighborhood looks. The trees, as several other people have spoken about, you see these homes being torn down and these very modern looking homes that don't fit within the neighborhood. You don't have to build a Tudor to have it look like it fits in the neighborhood. And we had Allison from the Historic Preservation Committee come to speak to many of our neighbors. And I think her voice was very strong. It's a minor inconvenience. and it will protect all of us for retaining the values of our neighborhood and of our homes. I have an 1.5 acre lot, so if somebody bought my house, they probably could subdivide it. I back up to that Cora Way, which is right off Old Short Hills Road, and they put 2 houses and built a fake cul-de-sac so that so a builder could sell 2 houses. It really is, we need to save our town in any way we can, and I hope that the committee approves this. Thank you very much for your time.
And there's one more dead body.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. My name is Apratim Devroy. I'm a resident of 25 Kenilworth Drive. I think a lot of participants today have spoken about the Woodfield Estate historical designation. And I agree that with the sentiment that our neighborhood is indeed special. I do want to record my opposition to the proposal to designate my home and other homes in our neighborhood in Woodfield Estates as a historic district. As many of the other participants have noted, being a historic district introduces many additional rules and regulations that would be a burden on me and many of my neighbors. As speakers have also noted, our neighborhood is a collection of different kinds of homes, all of which have been renovated and modified at different degrees and different points in time, including a few that have been torn down and rebuilt. I do not think any of these modifications or new constructions are an eyesore. In fact, they add to the diverse architecture in our neighborhood. We as homeowners take great care of our homes in our neighborhood, and all homeowners have done this voluntarily without the need for any additional regulations. I would urge the township to respect the right of homeowners and trust them to care for their homes, as it is in our best interest to do so. We do not need a historic district, and I would urge the township committee to reconsider and trust homeowners to maintain their properties in the way that they have always done. Thank you.
Anyone else online?
No more online.
Anyone else?
Hey everyone, I've been a Shortest resident for almost 12 years. And for last 1.5 years, I moved to the.
Sorry, can you state your name, please?
My name is Hitesh Jain. For last 1.5 years, I moved to the Woodfield section. I live in a property which is supposed to be designated as contributing. I love my house, I love the neighborhood, I love everything, but had I knew that it's gonna be a historic house, I would have not bought it. So I feel betrayed by my neighbors, my fellow residents, saying that, okay, now all of a sudden my property is gonna be a historic property. That means that all the things which we want to be do to the house is gonna be either scrutinized, but I'm not gonna be able to do that. So I literally have a personal impact because of this decision. I also was in the middle of doing something to my house. I also talked to so many other neighbors, and almost more than 50% of them say we don't want this. They've already signed the petition. Petition is with someone here. I was told to not submit the petition, so I didn't submit the petition, but 29 homeowners has decided to not support this. Of course, they are not here today to talk about that, but I hope their petition will be counted as their decision or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there's anyone else, I will now close public comment, and we are going to take a 5-minute recess before we have the PC members. Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah, I got up there.
Let's see. Resume our meeting.
Oh, wow.
We are going to continue. So at this time, we have a meeting. We're going to continue with our business meeting. So at this time, I will have the committee members respond to any of the public comments. Start with you, Brigadier Scope.
Thank you, Frank. Quite a bit of a sort of reply here too. And I like trying to get to everyone's comments. Probably won't get to everyone's. Let me start on the easy ones here with Mr. Carlin and New Jersey Transit. I don't know if you came in. We actually had a meeting with New Jersey Transit to discuss the current. I was actually transferred to 2 trains, got into work 3 hours later, and was stuck on a platform in sub-zero weather. Not fun. And you know, sometimes that's the price I pay for commuting in. I drove for a long time and then go back train and such. But yeah, we are pressing them for change and more transparency and visibility of what's happening. I can recommend the app. Since the New Jersey Transit came out with the app, I would highly recommend everybody get that app. When there's not one-off snowstorms that are crippling the transportation on 100-year-old systems into New York, it is very, very helpful. You can actually go down and see the density of the individual cars, which is very helpful. I didn't know you can do that until about a year ago, and that's where I positioned myself on the tracks. So you can see when it's being running ahead of schedule, behind schedule, which always helps getting out of the house. Ms. Frankel, Assessor, you know, I'm not going to go into the ice bit and the shootings and stuff, but I've seen those videos, just horrific. It has a lasting impact, you know, but I think everyone should understand that, you know, we do live in America. And Phil as well, Mr. Kirsch, thank you. Now let's get into fun stuff that's not fun, is the athletic fields. I think Mr. Heinrich said we've been working on it for at least 10 years. I think I'm 53 now. When my child was 10, 12, 13 years ago, I was going from field to field looking for a soccer field, and we still continue to do that today. It's good to have services that are commensurate with the taxes we pay. We definitely need more fields. The big issue, if you've not gone to all the public meetings and looked at it, is the playability of the fields and being able to use those fields in inclement weather versus a floodplain which exists behind the high school. So I think people just need to understand that there are trade-offs, good and bad, for the turf. We are looking at the new improved turf without the infill that Mr. Brazil referenced with the infill. It's more durable, it's safer, it's better temperature control. It has the same 12-year warranty, it's similar maintenance, etc. Somebody brought up maintenance. You really got to look at the maintenance as compared to flooding in back there and what that really costs to maintain. I think it's a great program for our students, for our kids. My daughter plays field hockey. To have a multi-purpose field back there for her to play on is going to be fantastic. It's a long time coming. Now, this seems to be the topic du jour that tonight, the HPC and the Woodfield section and such. A lot of people don't know, I live in a historic home, HPC regulated, I guess, home. And I bought that home because it was HPC. When I moved Short Hills to my home in the Wyoming section, I specifically looked for a home that was historic, because you want to talk about your rights being infringed upon. The rights of New Jersey politicians are infringing on our rights every day. And that's very problematic to me. There's 4 towns that don't have to have affordable housing: Montclair, Hoboken, Jersey City, and which are the ones? And Newark. And a few more, well, the 4 major ones that are close to us that should actually have the affordable housing, should have more monies in education, more job opportunities, etc. But it seems like the developers are driving this type of work. That being said, I see both sides. I'm a small government guy. I don't believe in big government. I don't believe stepping on property owners. I'm doing the work to understand what it means to be historic for this district. I sent a list of 20 questions to the historic board on legality and authority of rules, zoning versus HPC responsibilities, economic impacts, process enforcement, and practical implications. They responded fairly quickly with very good answers. I think, is Ms. Canfield here? Yeah, I think we should post that information out there for the audience writ large, because it's very good information and such. That being said, I'm probably gonna abstain tonight, but just understanding the process. There's so many things going on. Ms. Canfield came out to, I was putting in a roof, I was putting in gutters. She came out to my house personally in High Hills, came out and walked the property with me. What type of fence are you thinking? Oh, this is just, well, I recommend this type. Looks great because I have the dog. Looks fantastic. Okay, and it was actually a lower cost option. However, when I got to the gutters, I was going to put new gutters on and replace the current gutters and such. And the HPC specifically said, well, have you looked at 6-inch rounds? I'm not a house guy. I'm not sure. I had never looked at 6-inch rounds. I ended up going with 6-inch rounds for a considerable more cost. I think it was 3X. But I tell you, I've never been happier with the aesthetic look, and luckily I was able to afford the 6-inch round gutters. For the house, it was a little back and forth. I had a leak. I'd already ripped the roof off. I got a big red sticker slapped on my door, this and that. But when I called and I articulated my position, they reacted fairly quick and actually gave me the ability to go ahead and finish the roof and discuss it and fix it later and pay the fee, et cetera. So it wasn't horrific in terms of dealing with HPC. Now that being said, I bought my house knowing it was historic. I didn't buy a house that is gonna, people have used this term, arbitrarily be deemed historic. And when I look at the overall ecosystem of how it's being deemed, whether it's Taylor, One Street through, I've been in Miss Overdick's house. It's beautiful. I would not touch that house. It's, you know, my house was built in 1872. It's called 19th century vernacular, which means they use local materials and local builders and local contractors to build in 1872. 6 bedrooms. Is actually a boarding house prior to the other houses being built and such. But you know, the homes that exist in Woodfield are beautiful. I don't think they should actually you know, be touched, especially the older ones, et cetera. But there also comes at a cost, and you know, where do you cross that line? Is there a way to self-designate? I don't know. Is there a possible? Does that make sense? I just think we need to do a little more work, a little more education with the community. And as we go through this process, I'm learning every day new things about the overarching bills that are being passed by, I'll be nice, politicians in our state government and what they mean to us. And having things infringe on our rights as a town and as residents and such. You know, from Chris to Mr. Coons to everyone that discussed big government. Well, we're living in big government right now. Big government's controlling our day to day. And that's part of the call of action of why I ran for Township Committee. So, you know, I'll leave it at that for now. We're gonna have plenty of time to go over this in the next, you know, few sessions and go from there. That's it. Thanks.
Good evening, Cohen.
Yes, first of all, you know, I'd like to thank everybody who came to speak about the terrible tragedies that have gone on with in Minnesota with ICE. I have to say I was very encouraged to learn about the effort that Ms. Pasternak and Mr. Mastropietro are working on. And I believe that will also help answer some of Mr. Hirsch's questions that he raised. I hope, I mean, it sounded almost as if you knew what he was going to ask. So that's encouraging. And knowing both of you, and I know that you're from opposite sides of the political spectrum, you and Mr. Mastropietro, Ms. Pasternak and Mr. Mastropietro, I'm just encouraged that just makes this, it's a necessary thing, and that just makes it even better. With regard to historical preservation, I recognize the need for that. Typically I support that. What I have found confusing, and tonight just added to the confusion, is I don't really have a sense at this point as to how many people. I've heard all sorts of conflicting numbers. I've gotten a bunch of emails from people who are opposed to it, and they wrote an email saying, I changed my mind, I'm in favor of it, and now I'm back and forth. So what I would like to see going forward, but I do think this process needs to continue, is just to get a real sense of the people that actually live there, how many people are in favor of this and how many people are opposed. I think that's an important part of the decision. I am concerned, and I know about the bills in Trenton that were referenced tonight. They are pretty scary, and while people think zoning protections that we already have, and sitting on the zoning code subcommittee, we have a ton of protections, but most of the new bills are written in such a way as that they would override those protections. And maybe they would override historical designation as well, but you know, it's just one more tool in the toolbox. So again, I think we need some more facts, but I think this process needs to continue on to the next step.
Deputy Mayor Cosgrove?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't want to repeat what the fellow committee people said. I will, say thank you to everyone for coming out on the historic preservation issue. I'd add in, when we're talking about the legislation is, pending down in Trenton, that I have written, objecting to that myself. And it hasn't been mentioned here tonight, but that legislation is looking for 40 units an acre. So when I don't know if this picture here was contemplating 40. 40 an acre, is you could look at the development that's being put in by the Short Hills train station. That is, I think, 42 an acre. So you can see what the size is that could be shoehorned into an area. But thank you all for talking. I am going to sponsor it later, so you'll hear back from me. And of course, it'll be on for the next meeting a month from now or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the engagement tonight on a number of fronts. I think it's very encouraging for me to see, especially as new in this role, but of course not new to the community. And I will just say that I think we need to protect our community. We need to protect our community in a number of different ways, public safety wise, and the respect for one another, and that's respect for public safety and those in public safety roles, and those who are residents of every community, of every background. And so I am encouraged by this outside organization that has come together, bipartisan on that front. But I think, we have to continue to respect at all sides here. We have to respect those who are serving our country in different capacities, who are putting their lives on the line as well. And most certainly those who are vulnerable, we have to protect and ensure they know where they stand. With regard to New Jersey Transit, I'm really glad we're putting the feet to fire to an extent. Look, there are wood ties, I believe still there's wood ties at the Millburn train station, even at Summit, which is insane to me. So let's bring them out. I really think we need to do that. On historic preservation, these bills, I'm looking to support this ordinance tonight, and I think this is growing up here, this is a line of defense. And I think we're learning more about how the Historic Preservation Commission works. I think under the leadership of Ms. Canfield and others, and Mr. Stoller's examples tonight, it's a hand to hand, it's a hand holding, it's a process oriented group. And I think when people want to do things to their homes and they want to make certain improvements, there is leeway and there are discussions. And I think it couldn't have been said better by my colleagues up here about the threats of this pending legislation if we don't take a stand. you know, our legislators are not working in our favor, unfortunately, who represent us right now. So we have to do all we can on the home front. That's it for me. Let's keep rolling.
All right. So first, I'm going to start with ICE. So I appreciate everyone that came out and voiced their concerns. As mayor, as you would expect, I've actually received a lot of residents. A lot of residents have contacted me saying, "What can the town do? What are my rights, et cetera, et cetera." I've always been of the opinion that we should focus on local stuff as a township committee, and so I felt that it wasn't our place as a town to weigh into national politics. But I do realize that there's a lot of residents that want information, they have a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. And so that's why I've been working in the background with a outside group, bipartisan group of individuals. Some members of the Republican committee, some members of the Democrat committee. And we actually had a meeting and we discussed ways that we could help provide information to the community that was separate and apart from local government, because I don't want our local government to take a position on something and be, you know, liable for that position. I don't want to paint a target on our back. Some towns have made, you know, public statements and made proclamations saying, "Oh, ICE can't come here," and next thing you know, they have a lot of ICE agents there. So I really think that this approach of this outside organization having this panel, this webinar is going to be really great. It's my understanding at this point there are 2 immigration attorneys. There's a member of the ACLU that's going to be participating. There's a retired law enforcement officer, and I believe there's a few others. I believe tentatively the date targeted is February 22nd, but I imagine that this group, again, completely separate, independent of our township and our local government, will, you know, put out information. And I believe that this group is also going to be collecting questions so that those questions can be presented to the panel of experts. So hopefully that will help anyone in our community that is concerned or has questions on this topic. Second, turf fields. So we are actually looking at a variety of different materials for the turf fields. I actually found a hybrid solution that mixes grass, natural grass, with synthetic materials, and I've provided that information to those involved, and they're looking into it. Freedom Stoller has also found materials that are synthetic but don't require the infill that a lot of people have environmental concerns about. And both of these solutions potentially alleviate some of the heat-related issues and other environmental issues. So I think that the appropriate time to explore those is during the engineering phase of the project. This project has been, you know, we've been field deficient for so long. And I feel like for years and years, people have been talking about, "Oh, we don't have enough fields, we don't have enough fields." You know, finally, we're at the point where we can do something about it. And I don't think we should stop that process. I think what we should do is move forward. And then during the engineering phase, we'll have the experts look at all of the various options, and then we'll pick the option that makes the most sense. I think that most of these options are similar in price. So, you know, I don't think we need to slow things down, because if we're going to get something done in time, you know, for next year, I believe, you know, there's a schedule we're going to have to adhere to. And now HPC, topic of the evening. So I'd first like to start by addressing Ms. Steinberg's comments. So Ms. Steinberg, you've actually reached out to me. You and I have had a few different conversations. You referenced an email that I sent to you about the Senate bill. We had having a conversation on the phone. I sent you an email as I promised I would. I'm going to read that out loud. You brought it up. It goes like this. Hi, Ellen. When we spoke earlier, I mentioned that there is a troubling piece of legislation currently circulating through the New Jersey Senate. The bill was previously known as S4736 last year and has been reintroduced this year as S1836. This legislation would allow religious institutions and tax-exempt nonprofit entities to take land they own or presumably purchase and develop high-density housing anywhere they want, regardless of local zoning codes, if 20% of the units are set aside to be income restricted, or what the state likes to call affordable. More specifically, the bill allows for densities of up to 40 units an acre, again, irrespective of whatever local zoning is in place. To make matters worse, the bill is rife with opportunities for corruption. Section 1, subsection A of the bill applies to, quote, tax-exempt nonprofit organizations, with no limitation on the nature, purpose, or activity of the nonprofit. There is nothing in this bill that prevents a developer from creating or acquiring a shell nonprofit specifically to take advantage of the 40 units an acre density bonuses and by right development provisions in section 1 subsection E. Additionally, section 1 subsection E permits 1 story above the maximum height, but provides no definition of what constitutes a story, leaving municipalities unable to enforce meaningful height restrictions while developers exploit the ambiguity. So what this means is a nonprofit shell corporation could go into a single family neighborhood, buy a property, demolish it, and then build multi-story, 1 story higher than everything else around, high density housing up to 40 units an acre. Our zoning codes could do absolutely nothing to stop it. There's nothing stopping the nonprofit shell corporation from simply doing a ground lease to a for-profit developer, and then the developer could profit off the high density housing. The consensus among the various experts I have talked to is that under New Jersey municipal land use laws, historic designations are one of the single tools that provide the most protection against this proposed legislation. Let's assume, arguendo, that this bill passes. If a nonprofit acquires a property within a historic district, it would still be able to build up to 40 units an acre. But it would still have to abide by all of the HPC rules and regulations. This means it would have to go in front of the HPC board in order to get their plans approved. The HPC has the power to to ensure that whatever gets built be in character with the neighborhood. The HPC could further ensure that the overall design and materials used be consistent with what is used by other properties in the historic district. So while a historic district cannot stop this overdevelopment, it can at least control what it looks like. This alone would dissuade potential developers from even trying to acquire property in a historic district in the first place. Creation of affordable housing was a big campaign promise of our new governor, and she now has a veto-proof majority in the state legislature. Thus, I think this bill has a very high likelihood of passing. I wanted to share this information with you so you are aware of what is likely coming. While we can't prevent state legislation, understanding tools like historic district protections can help our community prepare and preserve our town's valuable historic assets. Now, to give a little context, Township Committee didn't decide we're going to go designate this neighborhood. What happened is we received a petition that had more than a majority of houses within that district saying we want to self-designate. So we initiated the process. It went to the HPC. The HPC, through their authority, analyzed the proposed district, did a report on it, and determined that it met the qualifications required to be designated as a historic district. That then goes to the Township Committee, and we have an ordinance on tonight for first read. Okay. Assuming that's passed, we'll have a second read. We're going to skip the next meeting, and it'll be in March because we normally like to give a meeting in between ordinance reads. Not required, but we do. During this time, I suggest that the people that are going to live within the bounds of that historic district get together amongst themselves, figure it out, form petitions one way or the other, and let it be known what your desires actually are. Because we as TC members have received a lot of emails from both sides. I've also received a lot of communications from people saying, oh, I was initially for this, now I'm against it. Oh, wait, I was against this, now I'm for it. So it's all very confusing. Mr. Jane, you and I have been in contact about this. I'm aware of that petition you have. It has 29 signatures. I've also been told that there's at least 6 people that want to take their names off of that petition. So my suggestion to you, when you asked me when would be the best time to submit the petition, my advice to you was, it would probably make more sense for you neighbors to figure out and get more information, and then closer to when we do the final vote, submit a petition for or against. I think that'll make it a lot easier for all of us up here having to make a decision.
We're working on
Unfortunately, this is not a two-way
Oh, sorry. Vice Mayor Tuba, sorry about that.
But you do get a second chance to speak at the end of the meeting. So, where was I? So the way I see it, this intervening month between initial read as it passes and second read is an opportunity for everyone to learn more about the historic district, what designation means. There's a lot of misinformation floating around. And I think some people in this room are guilty of spreading this. I think that there's more that we all need to know. Mr. Stoller, you referenced a set of questions that you submitted to the HPC. It's my understanding the responses you received are in draft form. Once they're in final form and they've been reviewed by the necessary experts in legal, I suggest that we do make that publicly available, as I believe those questions and subsequent answers have a lot of information that will clear up a lot of the misinformation that's out there. So in summation, you know, that's what I have to say about HPC, and we're going to address it a little bit later in the meeting. Mr. McDonald, do you have any responses?
No response.
Council? No. So seeing that, I'm going to go back to my script. All right. Consent agenda resolutions. Before we consider consent agenda resolutions, I would like to appoint Christine Best as my ex officio mayoral designee appointment to serve on the Milburn Short Hills Business Organization, Inc. District Management Corporation Board of Trustees with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2026. The Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve resolution 26-045 through resolution 26-053, which are listed on the consent agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cullen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sacamandi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 26-054?
Yeah.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 26-054?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cullen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sacamandi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 26-055? Seeing none, I have a motion to approve resolution 26-055.
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cullen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Sacamandi?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regards to resolution 26-056? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve resolution 26-056?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cullen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Emphatic affirmative.
Mayor Sacamandi?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have ordinance number 2728-26. Deputy Mayor Cosgrove is scheduled to sponsor.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2728-26. Ordinance designating the quote Woodfield Short Hills Estates unquote as a historic district pursuant to the historic preservation ordinance of the Township of Milburn. Brief explanation, I think we've all talked about it tonight, but it's an ordinance that would designate the Woodfield Estates section, and there's attached to a map as well to it, and a listing of all 54 properties. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item, and for hearing and final passage on March 3rd, 2026, please be advised that the public hearing of this ordinance will be held at the Milburn Education Center located at 434 Milburn Avenue, Milburn. Did I get it?
I think I asked
Second,
that.
okay.
Yeah, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
As I said, I'd like to see this process continue, so I vote yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
As I said, I'd love this, I want to participate in the public session. I want to see what that final tally looks like on the petition. And I'm going to preserve my vote with an abstention for now.
Mayor Sakamandy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2729-26. Even Ceruto is scheduled to sponsor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2729-26, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances of the Township of Milburn, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Boards, Committees, and Commissions. The purpose of the ordinance is to establish the Township's Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee in the Township's general ordinances. This will codify the Flood Mitigation Advisory Committee, which has previously been established each year by resolution. And so this is just setting the maximum membership terms and also guidance on the organizational structure for meetings, how the chairman is selected, as we discussed previously, and ensuring that its establishment can be used for years to come. And so obviously the committee, we know that flooding is not going away overnight, and there's been amazing strides. Even just earlier today, Nick Volpicelli, who's a member of the committee, and myself met with a student of the community to talk about some great recommendations and use of STEM and partnerships with local with the university, et cetera. So let's keep it rolling. So I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item, and for hearing and final pass on March 3rd, 2026. Please be advised that the public hearing of this ordinance will be held at the Milburn Education Center located at 434 Milburn Avenue, Milburn, New Jersey.
Have a second?
As former member of the Flood Mitigation Committee, absolutely second. Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Sakamandy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2730-26. I am scheduled to sponsor this. I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance Number 2730-26. An ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinances, Township of Milburn, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Boards, Committees, and Commissions. The purpose of this ordinance is to establish a residency requirement for all volunteers serving on an advisory board in the township. This ordinance would require that those volunteers that are no longer a bona fide resident prior to September 1st of a given year resign from any advisory board they are serving. Additionally, should someone cease to be a bona fide resident after September 1st of a given year, they will be required to resign as of December 31st of that year. This ordinance would not affect those boards or commissions established through statute, and exemptions would be provided for military service. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item for hearing and final passage on March 3rd, 2026. Please be advised, the public hearing of this ordinance will be held at the Milburn Education Center located at 434 Milburn Avenue, Milburn. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
As I said, when this was in new business, I think the September date is too strict. I would rather have seen that as July, so I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Ceruto,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Emphatic affirmative.
Mayor Sakamandy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to old business. First item up is the Taylor Park Gateway. Ready, Ceruto?
Yes. So in combination with a new business item as well, which we'll discuss shortly. Taylor Park Gateway obviously has gone through a number of iterations, was discussed a couple of years ago. And it was an advisory committee looking at it. And so I'd like to make it a priority for this year. And so Mr. McDonald I'd like to make this a priority and would ask for an update on where we stand and how we can make that happen.
Sure. So just by way of background, in addition to what Committeeman Ceruto stated about the advisory committee, there was then a second iteration, a scaled down version of our approach to the Taylor Park Gateway, which is on Milburn Avenue. We developed a plan, went out to bid. However, we did not receive any bids for the project in the first time we went out to bid. The second time we went out to bid, we received one bid in the amount of roughly $850,000, which we felt was far exceeded the estimate for the project. Since then, we have attempted to negotiate with the other contractors, which is what you're permitted to do after two failed bids. However, that has similarly come back with a price tag of 800,000 or more. So what we've most recently done is met with a local landscape architect who believes that they can help value engineer the project and provide us with a somewhat revised plan, but nothing too drastic that would help us move this project along. And it is our intention to receive that, sort of see where that puts us. I think also require, regardless of whether it's 850,000, I don't think it will be that, but it will still be more than what we have currently allocated. So we'll come back to the Township Committee for some additional funding and we will prioritize that project for this year. I think we're looking for, in terms of timeline, is to have everything ready to go post July 4th, which, as you know, will be a big celebration this year with the 250th. And will kind of put us on a timeline similar to what we had last year, just a year later. But we will certainly be prioritizing this project.
Excellent.
So yeah, I agree that this is a project we probably need to move forward. I don't like the price tag that was provided by the initial estimates that we received. So I'm very glad that we're going out and trying to value engineer this. And we should certainly solicit more bids if necessary. Mr. McDonald, do you know if there's Main Street, New Jersey funding that we can utilize for some part of this project?
So it is my understanding that Main Street, New Jersey funding is every other year, particularly in the amount that has already been received by the Special Improvement District in the amount of $150,000. Certainly, we've got two things that we're going to be discussing here tonight. One of those is most likely going to utilize that first tranche of $150,000, but again, my understanding is that we can continue to apply for money each year. It just won't be in that significant dollar figure. It may be more like $30,000 or $40,000, but I think that Main Street, New Jersey will continue to be a viable funding source for projects like this and other projects in the business district. But I don't. Again, I think the intention is to use that $150,000 that's already been received on the discussion item under new business.
And I believe we also designated Taylor Park as historic, so it might be worth reaching out to the HPC to see if they know of any grants or opportunities that might be able to be utilized on, some of this project. But I think for too long we've let these infrastructure projects go by the wayside in this town. So I'm very glad that this township committee is addressing that. So I'm in support of continuing to move forward with this further exploration, and we have something more concrete, we'll be able to. Anyone else?
I think we originally allocated more like 300,000, so 800,000 is quite different. I think it's all gonna come down to what you're able to negotiate and what that means. I'm sure that it would be scaled down in some way. So, it's not just the dollars, it's what are we getting for it as well. So I think it obviously needs to move forward, but I think we all have to reserve judgment until we have more facts.
I certainly agree. In terms of what we're getting for the pricing, and using, even maybe rebidding it again, but, absolutely would love to see, I'll use the word refreshed.
I think just to speak to it a little bit further is that the number that was thrown out and that we were basing our project on and trying to sort of design into that box was a little bit arbitrary. And so now maybe getting the design and understanding more of what the cost is so that come back to the township committee with a reasonable request for additional funding.
Yeah, thank you.
Everyone good with this matter? All right. Moving on, proposed long-term strategic plan advisory committee update. So I actually have an update. Last time I took the comments and concerns from our last discussion and incorporated them into a revised draft, which I will distribute to everyone this week via the town clerk. Rather than go through every change, let me hit on a few of the highlights, and then you guys can let me know if I missed anything. First, I added a fourth mission point, which is as follows. The board will now maintain an auditable record of all major township initiatives, studies, and recommendations. This directly addresses the concern about continuity across administrations and making sure things don't fall through the cracks. Second, I emphasized the relationship with the TC is two-way. We can refer items down to the strategic planning board and get back timing and prioritization recommendations. The strategic planning board could also surface long-term strategic ideas up to us. And if there's a new objective around organizing, or we have a new objective that we give to them, they can help us organize that with our wish list into a time-phased framework. Third, stronger guardrails on scope to address concerns about the board usurping authority. The draft now explicitly states that the board will not approve expenditures, direct staff, or override professional recommendations. Subcommittees will complement our professionals' work, not duplicate it. Fourth, flexibility on reporting and meetings. Reporting can now be quarterly or semi-annual at our request, not just annual. There is an interest in having it be frequent. And I added language allowing flexibility on meeting procedures to avoid unnecessary administrative burden under the Open Public Meetings Act. Fifth, TC member terms are clarified. Township committee members serving on the board will have one-year terms in line with their committee service. I think those were some of the major takeaways from our discussion last time. So I asked the rest of the committee if there's anything else they can think of prior to me sending around an updated draft for your review, and then I'm sure you guys will have more.
One thing I was thinking I hadn't mentioned before, we really need to think about when I don't know the need to go to orders, but when we appoint people to this committee, that they're not also necessarily, that they're not coming, so if you have somebody just arbitrarily, for example, from the flood mitigation committee, then of course they're gonna try to prioritize flood mitigation projects ahead of everything else. So it's just something, if we're gonna have a committee like this, I think the people on it should be independent and they can call in experts from members of those committees as needed, but I don't think anybody should be doing double duty.
Yeah, I think the way we had envisioned it, or at least I envisioned it, is
It's an advisory role, right?
Yeah, it's an advisory committee, like other committees, advisory committees we have, like the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. We had members from planning, we had members from other committees. So yes, we wouldn't want, all of the planning board to be on the committee, and we couldn't do that because of the Open Public Meetings Act. So I think by having, as long as we have a large enough number of residents, and then we have the various other advisory committees have representatives on there, there'll be a sizable board, but I think then everyone will be able to work collectively and figure out the prioritization of things. Because yes, obviously, flood people will think we'll flooding first, but I think that will help us as a township committee get a sense of, how these things might need to be prioritized. And also, I think the community outreach portion of what this committee will do is very important so that they can find out from the community what it is that people actually want to prioritize. Some people might have flooding, some people might have infrastructure projects. We should try and get a sense and let this committee help do some of that legwork so that we're, not up here flying blind or trying to add yet another to our list. Investigate.
Yeah, to add to what you're saying, I mean, Michael, I think having the different boards out there represented is a must because they do have the best pulse on what's going on in our township. For all too long, township committees have not participated and gone down and gotten that institutional knowledge of where there are certain needs for capital structure, et cetera. So I would say it absolutely has to have that representation.
I don't know, I think they could serve more as ex officio members. I don't know that they need to be full voting members. Because they come with a inherent bias.
We could look at that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, whether they can vote or they can't vote, it's an advisory board. So it's gonna be up to the township committee to take the recommendations and then decide whether we should action them or not. So if the township committee feels that there was a bias in the vote towards one particular thing or another, it would be at our discretion to identify that. And, I think it is important that we have some discretion there. We're not trying to, give our authority on projects and planning to this board, but it's rather meant to help enhance and supplement.
Yeah, and I think, so I'm happy with a couple of the changes you identified. I would say, I guess you use flooding as the example, Mr. Cohen, but
Yeah, just arbitrarily, I have no bias
but
against
that
that.
hopefully it wouldn't, this wouldn't be duplicative, with duplicating.
But all those
being the flood mitigation committee, hopefully it would just be.
But all of those
Project
committees
based.
have their own project, be that flooding,
Right.
be that recreation, whatever. So, if you're the flooding representative or you're the recreation member, that's also now on this committee, that, I think you come in with that inherent bias. So
Basically, look for fresh faces,
Right.
pretty much.
That's what I think. And then call in those experts as needed, as that committee is trying to do that prioritization.
I think I would take the opposite. I want the best people who have the most institutional knowledge with fresh faces as well as representing those boards. So we understand that we have a really good cap strategy and a path forward.
Yeah, I think I would agree on that. I think that if there's a board not to mess around with merit wise, this is the one to do.
I concur. And I think, if we look at how we did the Affordable Housing Committee, where you had the representatives, as long as we have enough resident representatives, that should outweigh, look, if you have one flood mitigation person, their priority is flooding, that's one vote for whatever, project is, being prioritized. And again, I see the committee more as helping to develop an overall plan, not necessarily picking and choosing individual projects to put forward, but more so helping us, along a long horizon, figure out, okay, we've got all these projects, we want to do this year, next year, this can wait 5 years, et cetera. So I think,
Exactly, it's the timeline, but
Yeah.
again, that, my project needs to be done first is something I just hope we are able to avoid.
I think, you bring up a valid point, and I think, but I think that's where we come into, ultimately, whatever the report comes in, we can have feedback on that.
And we don't need to put it in the order, I just think as we build a committee like that, we need
Yes.
to be
I
concerned with
think
that,
we
be
should be
careful.
very cognizant of who we put on the committee and make sure that they're not overlapping with a bunch of other committees. right?
Exactly,
I think
that was
that's,
my
I think
point.
that's what you were doing.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, on to new business. First item is downtown parking and sidewalk improvements.
Yes, I think everybody has in front of them some information. By way of background, through the virus a couple of years ago, I think we've all seen the backup of double parking in the downtown and the abundance of DoorDash and all the brands, right? I'm not picking on a particular brand, company, but the backing up within the business districts, right? In particular, downtown, angled parking was installed as originally as a pilot in front of the Milburn Deli, which is now lasted for a couple of years now. Several years ago, there were major downtown improvements that were initiated. And the downtown sidewalks and streets and lengths and widths were adjusted. And that original plan several years ago was never completed. And so we have been left with a downtown inclusive of the Taylor Park Gateway that was referenced earlier. That is not kept to the level that I think we would all expect Milburn Short Hills to be at. And so we've seen a decrease in pedestrian fatalities, number one, pedestrian injuries, number two, and in general, a calming effect within the downtown up until Main Street. But as soon as you move east of Main Street, down Milburn Avenue, you encounter 3 lanes, you encounter a hopscotch of people crossing the street where there are no crosswalks, and you encounter double parking not only in front of food establishments, but also in front of postal and shipping establishments. And you walk down the street and you see sidewalks that are in disrepair and that are beyond their visual age or visual aesthetic. So nonetheless, I would like to prioritize and to get feedback on proposed downtown Milburn parking and sidewalk improvements. The scope to refurbish the existing sidewalks on both sides of the street on Milburn Avenue east of Main Street, adding street trees and beautifying sidewalks, continuing angled parking from Milburn Deli to Whittingham Terrace, adding the addition of a crosswalk from Goldberg's Alley, basically the alley next to Goldberg's, to the Milburn Deli area, adding additional bump outs near the UPS store intersection of Whittingham Terrace and Milburn Avenue. And basically the total goal, right, is pedestrian safety at all crossings and on sidewalks, right? You don't want to be tripping or also being pushed into traffic because there's not enough space to walk. Or you're dodging, broken, whatever. Beautifying the downtown, adding additional parking spaces, really aiming to remove the 3rd lane on Milburn Avenue. It's like a highway, preventing double parking in front of restaurants and shipping establishments. And overall complementing the future Taylor Park Gateway and the past downtown improvements that have gone on. So there's a couple of preliminary sort of drawings and that were just produced that sort of detail, one way that angled parking could be continued down to Lackawanna and then eventually up to past Lackawanna to Whittingham and then to Holmes, where those bump outs are and sidewalks, new sidewalk in particular, new sidewalk, yes, but a new crosswalk in particular. And obviously complementing the proposed Taylor Park Gate. So I bring this as an item of new business. What do we think?
I'll start. I like the idea. I mean, really, it's dangerous walking across there. There are no real crosswalks. And the angled parking seems to have worked well in front of the Milburn Deli. So I'd like feedback from the Pedestrian Safety Commission as well as the MPD, Milburn Police Department, get their feedback as we move this process forward. And just like I was talking about earlier with New Jersey Transit, those platforms are in disrepair, so are the sidewalks. And I'd also like to, or is this gonna address the let me be nice here. The lack of the power lines that are running up that sidewalk because they're, you know, is there any way to improve that as well from aesthetics?
I would love to see that, and I think that would be something that we should add into the exploration if we are looking to sidewalk improvements, what may be able to be done. But I think that also, from past discussions with Mr. McDonald dating back to maybe even almost 10 years ago, you know, street poles haven't even been removed on Main Street.
There's like speakers hanging off.
Yeah.
Who owns those? PSC&G, Alex? JCP&L. When's the last time we've gotten in front and met with them from TC to this?
It's not really, just, I mean, if you, I don't wanna jump in.
No, go please.
But it's not really, whether you're in front of them or not, it's whether you wanna spend the money to do it. You know, other communities have done that. Unfortunately, they did that 20, 30, 40 years ago, to bury their power lines. One of the issues that we have is obviously the number of power lines that are running through the downtown area, the flooding of the downtown area, so most of that stuff is gonna go into vaults underground, so, and the expense that goes with it now.
Do we know what that expense would be yet, or?
I mean, I've only heard a million a mile, so.
Okay, so it's what, less than a mile long?
Yeah, it's, I mean, you have to, and the other thing is it can't be piecemeal. I think you have to.
No, I
address
understand, but if we're tearing up the sidewalks and doing the work, I mean, you know, why not take an exploration of what it would cost, what it would look like, and, you know, we can discuss it. I would love to know.
I think we should explore it.
And people talking about eyesores, so there's no bigger eyesore than those poles.
I think, you know, I think there's a few things with this proposal that are just common sense, the angled parking, again, like even Stoller said, I'd love to see MPD give input, the pedestrian safety advisory board. We probably should run it by planning board. You know, I think this did come to fruition, we would go to them anyway, but we might want to ask them in advance, if they can take a look at it and opine on it. I think the additional crosswalk by Goldberg's Deli makes a lot of sense. A lot of people cross there illegally. So I think that will improve safety. It also takes care of the issue down by Whittingham Terrace with the, again, those plastic barriers. I know that's been contentious. But, you know, I wouldn't let perfect be the enemy of good. If it makes sense to do the power lines, if it's financially responsible to do that, looking at that, but I wouldn't want to hold this up, you know, and get mired in the power line discussion, because I think there's probably, you know, a lot of people in town that would think that that might not be the best use of money, but let's see what it costs.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I have concerns just on this layout. Because if you drive through, always drive through downtown now, I don't think you're ever gonna solve the double parking or the triple parking by the UPS store. Because it's happening now even with with those plastic pump outs. I think if you take this by Goldberg's and narrow this down to basically one lane, which is what's happening when people are parking there. It's gonna be like the complete streets, you know, originally. I also think we need to think long and hard about money that we're spending, because I just see money going out the door. You know, we've still got paper bill. You know, we're spending, you know, $3 or $4 million on the fields. There's a lot of money going out. We just gave a chunk of money back to, you know, on the tax refunds, and I really think we gotta, you know, think of this as money coming out of your personal pocket. Not this, you know, a big chunk of money that, you know, that there's no supervision.
I would rebut that and saying, you know, somebody compared us earlier to Montclair, South Orange, Maplewood. They're fiscally dead, those towns. They're literally on the verge of bankruptcy. We are fiscally conservative. We've done a great job managing our balance sheet. We have a AAA credit. But people are paying taxes, quite a bit of taxes for services, and amenities that are commensurate with this town. I think that thought process is absolutely broken. We gotta look at it, we gotta analyze it, we gotta see whether it makes sense for the town moving forward. For us to sit on a $19 million, $17 million surplus of cash year in and year out, to me is ludicrous. We should spend the money to upgrade our town so we're comparable to Westville, comparable to Summit, and not comparable to South Orange, such. So, just doing it correctly and having just a methodical process where we actually look at it instead of just kill it out of hand.
But that's this committee we're forming. I mean,
Yes.
isn't this the first, it seems to me, I mean, I don't know what I don't know that we've established a threshold for the size of the projects that they would look at, but I would think this would certainly be something for them to be discussing in their initial portfolios.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just the angled parking and that's.
Right. But
you
it,
know,
but the power
I
lines.
think that would be a fraction of the cost
Sure.
of what we're talking about overall.
But once you're starting with the power lines.
But yes, when you mess with the power line, even the sidewalks, and I know that there's probably some funding opportunities there.
Yeah,
Main Street, New Jersey, but maybe it would make sense, let's do the strategic planning committee. Let's get more information on this, because we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And then when we have that, we'll have information to give to the strategic planning committee, and they can look at it and help evaluate, whether some are relevant.
Against all the other priorities.
Right.
And in the same vein as you're talking too, maybe have the HPC opine on it as well, in terms of the Taylor Park, we were talking about that,
Yes.
but also on this as well. Because there should be a historic fashion and some type of continuity throughout the town.
Sure. So one thing just to note, answer, some questions is on the financing. There is $150,000 grant that was received through Explore and focusing on the downtown improvements, which, is obviously slated to be used for something of this nature. So I think that is one aspect. Additional grants, looking, to see if there's other funding mechanisms. But I do think that we should separate the power line discussion from it and, and continue to look at it. But I don't think we should, I think we should keep this as just my opinion, as a priority. I value Mr. Cosgrove's point, on the finances, but I think if there's funding available, for us to take that.
I think it would be a strategic mistake not to look at the power lines. If we're gonna have the sidewalks repaired or such and have them up, if the cost is half the cost of going back and doing it later, we might as well take a look at it and just get the information so we understand, not just bypass it altogether.
Yeah, I think no one's disagreeing that we shouldn't get the information. I think we're putting the cart before the horse. We should get the information. We should figure out what the scope of this is. We should have the strategic planning committee and whatever other committees weigh in on scope of what we want to do. And then we can properly evaluate, okay, yeah, if you're tearing up the sidewalk, if you think the strategic planning committee says, look, we want within the next 5 years to bury those power lines, right? We've determined that's a priority. The public has said that's a priority, right? I'm just being arbitrary about it, but let's say, for the sake of argument, they decided that. Then, we would look at it and say, okay, well, the cost to do it when you do the sidewalk is probably a lot less than doing it later. But these are things that I think the strategic planning committee could help us
100%.
sort out. So I don't think we should take anything off the table. We should go in with an open mind. But let's form the new committee, let's utilize it. And in the meantime, let's get some investigation so that they can hit the ground.
And I would just add one thing, just seeing the word bump out makes me a little nervous because, we've had some bad experiences with bump outs in the past downtown, so we need to make sure, I think it's a good idea to do it, but we may need to make sure that we're not impeding the ability of emergency vehicles to make that turn onto Whittingham, because there's a bump out.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a better name for bump out.
No, that's what it is, but we just need to be careful.
But also, how do we solve it? And this is another discussion which I didn't list on this agenda here. But how as a community are we going to mitigate the double parking that is happening?
It's enforcement.
And
an enforcement
and at a location like that, because if it is not a bump out,
If you had a policeman, if you put a traffic officer there, you know, at lunchtime, you know, when people are doing it, also at dinner time, when people are picking up stuff. And I know they don't like to give out tickets to town residents because, you know, people get angry, but you know, you do that for a while, you know, ultimately it'll stop.
Yeah, I think that's something we can do in the short term. Maybe we can talk to the police department about doing some parking enforcement there. I know no one likes fines, so maybe they had a warning or it's a small fine to begin with, but I think for too long we've sort of let that go on. So we should address the enforcement aspect. I think do that immediately. You guys let me know. Three of us to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
to that.
I definitely
So
would agree, yeah.
We'll look into enforcement and then all the other stuff we talked about.
Mr. McDonald, you had a point on this?
I have a couple points if I could. One is, I was actually going to suggest maybe something else when it comes to, of course, enforcement. I think that is absolutely necessary. But maybe exploring whether we can become the community that you don't ever want to get caught double parking because it is a higher fine than you oversee than the other community. If it's an issue, then perhaps there's a way for us, and some of that goes under Title 39, some of that, you know, might be a local ordinance that can be adjusted to increase the fine for double parking or obstruction of a lane. In addition, you know, because we do, you know, we're obviously exploring this, our ability to spend this $150,000. It sounds like this process might take a lot longer than we have. We have to actually spend that money by August. I just wanted to make a suggestion, because this has come up for years and years, whether it's pedestrian safety advisory board, whether it's just general commuters, people walking the downtown, the Winningham intersection is a problem. It is something that needs to be addressed. So perhaps we could utilize that funding to improve the pedestrian safety of the downtown by doing this extension of the curving at Winningham and piloting some of this angled parking as you note in this diagram by Oscars, because it actually yields, you know, a few more parking spaces. That's always a complaint for those businesses over there because there's no surface area parking in that area. And maybe that's a, you know, I think that if I learned anything from my experience having gone through that previous project is that you need to take chewable bites, right? How to eat a whale, right? So maybe that's a route that could be taken. It would also offer some planting area, some additional, you know, trees, things like that. And maybe that's just a sort of a quick hit on them while we do all this.
Yeah, we don't want to leave money on the table. That seems like I like the idea of doing a pilot of it. We sort of did a pilot of the angled parking already, Wilbur Deli. I think that worked out very well, and that's why we're talking about this now. But if we could, let's have, you know, the necessary experts within the township weigh in on what the scope of that pilot would look like, and we can figure out if that's something we can size to fit that 150,000 nicely. I think that'd be something we could do while we're putting this through the rest of the process.
Sure. Excellent. Yeah, I'd like to see the pilot. Thank you.
Great, so next up is community holiday decorations and lighting.
A lot, but you know, obviously Mr. Stoller had mentioned it the other day as well. I think in general, we've just seen, I think you can tell by my personality thus far, you know, take the bull by the horns, right? Let's get working. But I obviously, the Township Committee prior to me and just myself as a resident and incoming Township Committee member, heard a lot about downtown decorations. So trying to get ahead of it, you know, who knows? You know, I stopped looking at now that Christmas and holiday decorations have started to come down from stores. I haven't seen as much out, but I'm sure there's still great sales going on. Basically, call to the community if you're interested in getting involved in something like this. Reach out, and we're going to be. I wanted to get all of your feedback, sort of, but just trying to get some people together to work with Mr. McDonald on getting a plan together to take care of to get decorations going in different parts of town, building up, right? I mean, not looking at it unless there's a significant sponsor. not looking at, sort of, be the, Macy's lobby, but I think, we gotta start somewhere. So, I grew up here, the sidewalk, snowflakes, which, were what they were, but at least they were something.
This might be something where we wanna go to the local businesses, see if there's sponsorship opportunities.
But is that us or is that, or is that something that the city should really be doing?
Oh, but they haven't.
Well, but then,
I think that's the
but is that something but we direct that, right?
I think that this is sort of all those parties. One, the township is most likely gonna be purchasing the items, right? So, and the things that are gonna be displayed, but the city is gonna have the relationship with businesses or have an idea of where things can be placed. DPW should be part of it, they know where electrical is throughout the town. But also I think residents have brought up concerns and it's probably a good idea to have a couple residents step on us and say, hey, this is kind of what we envision and what we want to see. So Jamie and Mr. Ceruto, and I have had a conversation about it. I think it would be a great group to throw together because it unfortunately has been left to the municipality to figure out what the people want, right? And how much we're gonna be able to do. And I that doesn't always work out that well.
Every year it seems people come and complain about the lack of holiday lights, so let's at least get their committee to talk about it and.
Everybody likes a little holiday joy.
I would say put a committee together to get it done, not just.
Well, I gotta say, to get it over the finish line.
Let's do it. I envision 1 to 2 meetings, select, recommend, purchase.
Well, let's get the pricing and then.
No question, but the other piece is, that I wanted to sort of bring up and Mr. McDonald could also give some colors on, the lighting in Taylor Park. So there's a project that is coming together, to install, regular lights throughout Taylor Park. As you know, Taylor Park is way too dark, to begin with, let alone during the holidays. So there's a project that's coming together to install light poles within Taylor Park, and those will have the capability, they will have outlets on them, right? So if we did want to continue to light, or sort of resurrect the winter walk or something of that fashion, we would be able to do that. If I'm explaining correctly.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier with those light fixtures installed. We do that as well as looking at things that can be put on the current pedestrian scale lighting downtown. All those are possibilities. But I think as you mentioned is sort of like build up to it. Some of these things can be pretty expensive. I think we bought a snowflake to be displayed. That was $4 grand in and of itself. So, but again, you could rent that and it would be, $500 or $750 and you're renting it, so.
Snowflake made of gold or?
Well, I'm telling you, it's expensive stuff but it's far better to purchase it and have it so that we can display it for the next 10 years as opposed to renting it each year. It's just an investment, but maybe an investment.
We don't want to spend that much money if this also becomes a project for the new strategic
Right.
planning.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage,
How about the permanent displays? I know. What about a permanent display rather than something that gets put up? What's the change? I mean, this.
Christmas in July.
Well, no, arguably it could be, the light color could change for a lot of different. Reasons.
Like an ombre, like a,
But again, I don't know what the price would be on that, but
If you notice, that is already on Bauer Community Center. Yeah, so those are possibilities. I think also another factor in this is encouraging the businesses to be displaying too. It's not just up to the community to be festive, right? And try to
And
get the whole.
you see it from Delhi, Over in Delhi.
Yeah,
They do a great job
yeah.
of decorating,
Yeah, they do.
for the holiday, Mr. Morgan.
But yeah, it's something.
All right, good, so let's move that forward, next.
Well, that concludes our new business. Next up is the second public comment period. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak for your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name, whether you are a Millburn resident or a property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. Reminder that in order to help facilitate the orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute section. I'll open the public comment period.
I'm Peter Humphreys. I live in Short Hills. And I'm gonna ruin the mood from happily holiday festivities to this affordable housing bill that's around. I know affordable housing is a big deal. We all know that. Nobody's trying to minimize it, but it's becoming the bogeyman. There's a picture, and we should just talk about what it is at the moment, okay? So there's this bill that's being reintroduced. It was introduced last year in Trenton, didn't pass. It's got 2 sponsors. It's got no corresponding assembly bill. There's no hearings at the moment scheduled. It's getting opposition from a lot of people because of exactly what it does. So, but let's assume that it gets passed. Okay, let's just assume it does. If it does, it says religious organizations and tax exempt non-profit organizations will be allowed to take property they own, they actually own it, okay, and build affordable housing. Now, it's not easy to become a tax exempt non-profit. You rightly point out there's nothing in the bill that has any rules about this. But there's thousands of pages of rules and regulations in the federal tax law and the state tax law that govern tax exempt. And you talk about the email you read out to us, which you've widely circulated. I know you don't want to mislead people. It talks about those people setting up shell nonprofit entities, which could then scoop up these properties. Well, I don't know how you do that. They wouldn't be able to do that under rules and regulations. So lots of restrictions. So I don't think it's realistic that a builder could do that. And I think before we stop trying to work out shell corporations here, I don't see you can do it under the federal or the state tax exempt rules. That's my first comment. But let me assume let's go on one stage. Let's assume that we have this really clever developer and they do take advantage of the legislation. Okay? What are they going to have to do? They set up a nonprofit. They can only buy property if they capitalize the nonprofit. So they got to stick in enough money to buy a workable lot. That's $3 to $4 million in my neighborhood. Then you've got to get another $2 million to build the affordable housing. That's $5 million. You can't get the profits out of the nonprofit. It's a nonprofit. The money's trapped. You can't just dividend them out like you could with a regular company. And there are rules. Okay. So I don't understand what would happen. Let's assume somebody tried this. A really clever guy would go around all my rules. We'd just sue the hell out of them as a sham and we'd win. So I just want to make these points because Jamie and Mr. Strudo said we should keep all the arrows in our quiver. Yeah, that's great. But when you're considering whether to make us,
Time is up.
yeah, I understand. I'll be 2 seconds. When you're considering whether to make,
Sorry, if I give you 2 seconds, I have to give it to everyone else.
whether you're concerned to me, please don't just make us the test case when the only person you can prevent is the people who build these affordable housing units in our district
Mr.
and not the
Humphries,
rest of them.
your time is up. You're welcome to come back at the next meeting and speak for your 3 minutes of public comment then.
Yeah, I'm finished. I thank you. I appreciate that.
Hi, Leah Cruz, Township President. 3 quick things. You had mentioned, Mayor, about somebody should bring back a petition with how many people are for or against. I'm not sure I'm in agreement with that. I don't know why other residents who don't live in that area, why their voice and why their opinion doesn't carry equal weight. I mean, we can give our opinion on what's happening in downtown and other areas of town, and I feel like this district, it does involve the whole town. I love Jamie's initiative about downtown improvements. I'm all for it. Our downtown sorely needs it. I'm gonna say a couple things that might not be that popular. I feel like maybe we should wait for that Annie Says apartment building to come online because I think it's gonna really affect downtown traffic and God knows what else. As far as double parking, you notice there's no double parking on Upper Milburn Avenue. And if you notice in Summit, you rarely see people double parked anywhere. Why? Because it's 2-way traffic. And I hate to say it, I think maybe we should reconsider that again. If it's 2-way if it's a two-way street and you're parking on both sides, you cannot double park. I know that's not really a popular opinion, but I feel like it might be the only way to combat double parking. And the last thing is, I'm not really sure what that $150,000 was earmarked for, but perhaps so we don't rush to use it on something that maybe we really don't want to use it for, that's not well thought out, perhaps could that be used for the holiday decorations? Thank you.
Hello again, Phil Kirsch, Melbourne resident. I was happy to hear Mr. Saruto mention a winter walk. I think a lot of people miss that. I know it became like almost a family tradition for us in just the short time that we had it. And if there's some way, I know originally with the Chamber of Commerce, but if there's some way that can be put together, you know, with other holiday decorations, with Explore Milburn, or somebody do that, I think that would be, you know, really welcoming to the town. I think I hear so many people miss it. I think it would be a great thing to bring back if it's possible. On another topic, I was happy to hear about this webinar that's being set up, potentially for February 22nd, regarding immigration enforcement. My concern again is that, okay, we can have some immigration lawyers, we can have a retired policeman, we have these people give us information. My concern is, I want a commitment from the town legal advisors, the township government, the township police. So if and when I'm caught in this situation or somebody else is, we don't find out, oh, I was told this, oh, but that was this attorney from the ACLU, that doesn't apply. Oh, I was told this, but that was a retired policeman in this chamber. We need a commitment. I'm not asking for a declaration that's gonna put a target on the back of the town if we're concerned about that. But I think, you know, I know that the mayor mentioned he wants to concentrate mainly on local topics, and I agree with that. But I think this is local and it's an exception. And I hope you see my point that we need something, we just need something official coming from the town. So this webinar is a good idea for general information, but the town still needs to act with something that tells us specifically what we can do, what we can't, what the police can do and what they can't. It may not be what I want to hear, because legally it may not be possible. I may be stuck in just going along with enforcement, but we have to know that. So I need that commitment that starts with the town government and goes with our attorney and the police department. There's really nothing else that can settle this question. Thank you.
So respectfully, the suggestion that a historic designation, sorry, my name is Arjun. I'm a resident of the Woodfield section. So respectfully, the suggestion that a historic designation can shield this township from state mandated affordable housing obligations is not supported by New Jersey law. New Jersey courts have repeatedly cautioned against the use of preservation overlays as a defensive zoning strategy, particularly when applied broadly or without clear nexus to cohesive historic integrity, noting that such approaches may increase legal exposure rather than reducing it. Reliance on historic designation as a mechanism to prevent state housing mandates is therefore legally ineffective and strategically counterproductive. Moreover, the Woodfield section does not have meaningful function as a realistic site for affordable housing to begin with. It's a fully built out, low density residential neighborhood characterized by single family homes on irregular parcels, limited transit access, constrained infrastructure, and no meaningful opportunity for large scale or cost effective multifamily development. As a result, designated Woodfield, whether historic or not, does not materially affect the township's affordable housing obligation or compliance strategy. Accordingly, historic designation neither lawfully nor practically protects the township from state housing requirements. Instead, it risks imposing permanent regulatory constraints on homeowners while providing no corresponding benefit in housing compliance, potentially displacing development pressure to fewer remaining sites and increasing long-term legal and planning risks. Thank you.
Hi, Jean Pasternak. I just wanted to quickly comment that I think that's actually not true what you just said. You might want to look into Glen Ridge, town that's completely declared 90% of it is historic. And I believe that their their declaration of that has helped them a great deal with the affordable housing mandates that the state has laid down. So maybe check that as an example that might not fit with what you just said. The other thing I was gonna say is that, sorry, I lost my train of thought. On the Whittingham, I wanted to say something about that. I don't know how that UPS got, I guess they had a change of use that got approved. I have no idea how they came to be on that corner, but why are they there? I mean, if the parking isn't sufficient and it's causing all this problem, could the town offer an alternative place for them to go? That's all.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Feld, first, I want to compliment TC and the community for how civil we were tonight. I mean, it's a marked difference than it was like in 2021 with the fights over historical preservation where it was fisticuffs. I really want to really give a shout out for the whole community. Also a shout out for cheap people like myself for Valentine's Day. By going, when I pay my taxes, I saw there's a senior newsletter that on 2 o'clock on Valentine's Day, the library is gonna be showing probably one of the best rom-coms ever, Roman Holiday. And I really want the community, because I even like when I talk to the kids in high school, that we have a common language. That should be emphasized, that the library is gonna be showing probably the greatest rom-com ever that we could all do, and it's free. 13 people like me. Right, but again, I really want to compliment the community about the ideas. For Jamie, you need to look at the annual debt statement and the bond offering statement about how some monies have been, I think we need an accounting as to the bond anticipation notes that were issued for Taylor Park, how they were used. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is this working?
Yeah.
I guess you can see us. So Christine Best, hi, I'm retired, and Milburn Township. I just wanted to bring up, this was a really nice meeting. I'm digging the vibe a lot. I really like it. I don't know, there's a lot of change here, and it was a real pleasure listening to everything, a lot of smart comments. And I just wanted to just bring up one thing, or two just quick things on particularly just our general sort of strategy towards design in this town when we're doing larger projects. And there's a lot of design comments, so that's why I was just bringing it up. Just really thinking about, if you are going to, I've been in situations in my house where I only have $100,000 to spend on my landscaping, and I know it's gonna cost me, and everybody has different price points, so no comments there. But it's gonna cost me maybe 3 times as much. And so what I do is I do a master plan, and I spend $3,000 to do a master plan. And I slowly, over a 10-year period, as I can afford it, spend $10,000 here, spend $5,000 there, whatever, and I get the end result that looks like I did it all at once. And I think what's really important is we lose sight of doing a strategic plan, because it does cost money. I don't know what it would cost to design Taylor Park all at once, for example. But if you do that strategic design, then you can go in as you have money, when you get, a grant of $150,000, and you can complete the gateway, or you can do, lighting renovations, et cetera. And so my suggestion is to really think about that, because one of the things that Charlotte and Barris talked about is the Riverwalk quite a bit of time. And I think it's time that Milburn gets some money from Joey D, because we give so much money to Essex County. And it would be so amazing to have something like a Riverwalk that flowed into that park. So just something to think about, and and maintaining its naturalistic design. So, I think at this time, I would really like to see possibly a budget set aside to do that, to, do a strategic plan for the park, and then work on the Gateway project as it relates to the overall design. And that's my only comment. And thanks, Jamie, for the holiday light stuff. It's awesome.
Anyone else from the audience?
Sure.
Al Carlin, a resident, 32 years, and I am not running for Congress. Although I am qualified, more qualified than some of these people. It's unfortunate, but we've seen millions of dollars spent on negativity in the last few months. That's a damn shame. And thank goodness we don't see that negativity in our township these days. And that's appreciated. It's really bad when we see candidates running for office being totally negative. And groups coming in like the APAC, so forth, and we know who they are, of course. Just several comments. I walk neighborhoods, basically District 10, and they feel that the mayor is doing a very good job with communication. Alex, sir, you've done a very good job in protecting the community. That's what's said by many people, and that's why the township works in many ways. If there's a disaster, Alex will be there, and that's one of the things. As far as safety in the community, walking Main Street, walking across Main Street, not Main Street, Wilburn Avenue at times is problematic, to say the least. With Andy says coming on board, it is going to be even more problematic. Changing any parking, it's going to be, I suggest let's not change any parking until he says, well, the apartments open up there. One lane, having one lane would be problematic also because of emergency vehicles, and at certain times of the day, that's going to create even more of a traffic jam unless we have some sort of a study done. Like I say, I've been here for about 30-something years, and I do not own any property, and I do not own any businesses. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
My name is Ritesh, I live in Woodfield State, in a contributing property. I just want to thank Alison. She has been very nice, very knowledgeable, very reasonable. She has a vast knowledge of the house which was built in 1928. She explained me a lot, and I really double checked all of that because I like fact checking. I double check every single thing, and what she said was true. I also want to thank Mayor Frank, because he has been also helping me a lot. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, what we did, while trying to prevent the subdivision of our lot, we unfortunately subdivided the entire Woodford section into two parts. So to fill the gap, Laura Overdeck and I have been trying to do something to make sure that all the committee will come together, neighborhood will come together, discuss this, and we'll figure it out what to do from there, and we will come back to you. Okay? Thank you.
Do you have anyone online? All right, with that, I will now close public comment. Have a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry. I actually have things I'd like to say. So, why don't we start at this end of the dais?
Sure,
Vito?
sure, try to be short and sweet. Just to clarify, 2 lanes, never go down to 1 lane. I don't support 1 lane anywhere. I know that it is present right now in part of downtown. I didn't vote on that. So I won't be voting on anything. So 2 lanes, 3 lanes to 2 lanes, always 2 lanes. You know, I like the thought in this discussion about 2-way traffic. That was studied. It was looked at on Essex Street, and then was, if I'm correct, was deemed that it just didn't have committee support.
Really not.
It was very expensive. So everybody has that kind of money, you know, laying around, would like to donate it. You know, that's it. But that could be one of the strategic projects. Look at that as well. I think that's pretty much it. I also, I know some things were referenced with Taylor Park. I just want to give a little shout out to, I believe he's still a resident, to Jesse Molman, who did a amazing Taylor Park strategic plan, brought the community together several years ago, looked at different improvements, and little by little, it has been chiseled. I think one of those, part of the strategic plan was the gateway. So, I think we certainly have done the studies there. I think we could try to do a little bit of piecemeal. Nobody ever wants to do piecemeal, use the word piecemeal in a positive way. But I think, are there ways that we could look at the gateway in that way to maybe do a couple of things? So we can talk about that further. Enough comments from me. Have a good day.
Deputy Mayor Custer.
Nothing for, thank you, Mayor.
Rudy Van Cohen.
Yeah, I had two things. First of all, with regard to Mr. Humphrey's comment on that bill, while I'm not gonna speak to how far-fetched it is to have, a made-up non-for-profit. A better example is we all know that religious institutions are in trouble, and what do? They merge. And when they merge, they have two buildings today, but they really don't need both of them. So now they can get rid of one. It can be demolished if it's not historic. And then there you have land owned by a religious institution that's just sitting for a 40-acre per unit development, regardless of where it is, 1 story higher than anything around. So that bill is something to be, concerned with. As a committee last year, we passed a resolution, our opposition to it, and now that it's been reintroduced, I think that's something we should do again, this year. Make that clear to our state legislature. Mr. Kirsch, 6 months ago, we did publish what the town is legally allowed to do with regard to ICE. I haven't looked at it in a while. I don't know that anything's changed, but that did quote the various rules and laws that are established by the state of New Jersey. I think we should just take a look at that and make sure that it's still accurate. I don't think anything's changed, but just to be sure, and maybe distribute that again, given that the ICE situation just continues to worsen. So I would recommend that we do that and then push it out again through our notification channels. Thank you.
David Solar.
Sure. All right, I'm gonna be unequivocally say this township supports affordable housing. We are not against affordable housing. We don't want to wipe off the face of the earth. We are gonna do everything we can do to do it in a sensible manner, sensibly financially, sensibly for infrastructure, sensibly for our school system, sensibly for the density of our town. As our attorney sitting here, we are doing what we have to do. We with the leadership up here, we put in place the committee for the 4th round. We put a fantastic plan in place to meet our obligations. No lawsuits against it. So I don't want us to come off as, hey, we're just against affordable housing. I think looking at the strategic nature of the Woodfield section, looking at the different places, the bill, et cetera. But, I just want to make it unequivocally clear from this dais, when people are watching this video, when they are, that we are not against affordable housing. I'll say it again, we are not against affordable housing. We're doing it in a very sensible manner, in a way that's compliant with our town in the best possible financial manner. Not writing blank checks for $50 million, not putting 6,000 people in one corner, et cetera, but doing it in such a way that we don't overburn our school system, that we don't overburden our tax ability, as well as the infrastructure. Should I say it one more time, or Karen? Think we hit that? Okay, good. I'm sure Frank will say too. I want to commend the entire dais for the professionalism, the civility, and the intellectual capacity brought to the township, and that we continue to exhibit. Frank, you're running a fantastic meeting. We really appreciate that. This is just the start of things that come in the years ahead. So I appreciate everybody up there. Thank you.
All right. So. Mr. Hirsch, so yeah, I think we can look at something we put out. I mean, someone put out something recently. We have put this out in the past. Unfortunately, you're not going to like the answer. So if I'm going to use your scenario that you gave, ICE comes and is pulling you out of a car, call the Milburn Police. Milburn Police is not going to be able to interfere with federal law enforcement. We're just not allowed to. Legally, we cannot. And that's true all across the country. And I think you've probably seen that in other parts of the country. Local law enforcement, federal law enforcement, completely separate. Federal law enforcement doesn't collaborate with local law enforcement in our state. We have state laws against that. So we certainly put out some information that we put out in the past, and hopefully that will help clarify this, but I just wanted to respond to your hypothetical with my understanding as it is that local police cannot interfere with federal law enforcement. So, next, Mr. Humphrey, and Arjun, I'm sorry, I don't have your last name, but
sorry.
You know, I think it would be foolish to think that developers wouldn't find ways to exploit loopholes. The legislation that we've been talking about is currently written is very loose. There's a lot of room for misuse, and developers absolutely will find every single little loophole and exploit them. And again, I want to be clear, this doesn't stop affordable housing. I'm not suggesting that historic districts should be utilized to stop affordable housing. What I'm more concerned about is high density development in single family neighborhoods where it doesn't belong. And we are seeing instances where this is happening in other parts of the state. Now, granted, the circumstances there are different depending on who owns the land, but I believe that this bill will open up Pandora's box. It's not difficult to start a 501c3. If you have some money and you have the proper attorneys, you can do that. I'm pretty sure developers will find ways to exploit these 501c3s, acquire land, and go into neighborhoods and build housing. And yet, it might not be 40 units an acre. It's possible, it could be, but I could certainly see a developer going into a single family neighborhood and deciding to put 5 units in, right? One of them is affordable, so that allows them to build those 5 units, right? I don't know, would you want a 5-unit structure in your single family neighborhood? Now, historic won't prevent that from happening, but it puts some guidelines around it. It helps you control the design, the materials used. It gives you more control. And I think given that municipalities in our state are under attack from state level politicians trying to jam more and more housing units throughout our communities, I think we have to look at every available tool. And look, at the end of the day, I think the residents should be the ones in that neighborhood to make the determination. This all started because residents decided they wanted to initiate the process. Now, granted, some may have changed their mind since then, and we don't know, where the numbers lie. We'll certainly find that out. But the fact of the matter is there's been a lot of misinformation that's been peddled by, again, some people in this room that are detractors. And I think it's important that we get accurate information out there. So we talked about some things tonight that we're going to work to try and get some additional information. Mr. Jane, I understand that you're going to be working with another neighbor to maybe put together an info session.
Yes.
Certainly would encourage you to invite the appropriate members of the HPC or whatever other experts are required to have a productive session. But ultimately, it's you guys, the residents, that should, you were driving this, and we will see how it shakes out. But I do think it would be foolish to think that developers won't find every single opportunity to exploit these laws, and I do think a lot of these laws are coming. All right, that.
Well, I want to add one thing, Frank. You jogged my memory on a place. So we're talking about the overriding laws. The Woodmont development's on our aquifer. It's on the aquifer. We're cutting down a forest on our aquifer to build that project. We were told people made decisions based on that. The DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, would never let that happen. 180 species to disappear like that. It took them less than a half an hour to agree to do that project and move it forward. So this is the type of things we're dealing with. Now, like I said, we support affordable housing, but let's do it sensibly.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think high density housing belongs in single family neighborhoods. that's my opinion. That's something that's that we've campaigned on, run on, and, you know, we're gonna try and provide whatever tools and mechanisms we can to, you know, allow those single family neighborhoods to stay single family neighborhoods, if that's what the residents want, obviously. All right, well, with that, I think we've had very
Motion to adjourn.
productive meeting, so second.
Second.